Hello. Hello, hello, hello. We're here. Welcome to the show. How's it going, everybody? Man, I have a headache. I made some decisions. You make decisions, and sometimes those decisions involve not drinking enough water. So we're suffering the consequences today, but that's okay. I'm kind of trying to set the mood. What's the right color or color combination? Like this one over here is not as bright, and that is on purpose. What happens if I... Is that a dragon egg? Yeah, it's a 3D printed dragon egg. It's actually modeled after the one that Daenerys holds the most frequently in the first season. So it has this, like, worn away part where the definition of the scales is kind of gone. So, yeah, I 3D printed this. It's only like 15% infill or something, so it's very lightweight, which is why it's perfect to go on my shelves that are floating. Thank you for the donation. I will read that in a second. Hold on. Cool. I still haven't finished making decisions about all this. I did earlier kind of like put this vine up here in a way that I like a little bit better, but I am going to need to do more of those. Anyway, Riffs No Leads, thank you for the $25 donation. Starting off stream strong. Had a good night recording with my band last night, so here's some moolah to pass on those vibes. Hell yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me put that on the... Put this on the thingy-mabobber. $25. Thank you. Goodness gracious. So, it's Sunday, which for me, I'm like, Sunday fun day, let's chill. Okay, clear that. What happened last stream? I missed it. I mean, I think at a certain point, I kind of felt like I didn't have anything to talk about, so I opened up World of Warcraft and like started a new character, and just kind of played that, and I realized, oh, I have a lot more that I could say. I just needed to be moderately distracted in order to continue having thoughts. It's weird ADHD stuff. Jerome in the YouTube chat wants to know, what band are you with and what instrument do you play? I think possibly not realizing that at the time when I was speaking, I was reading a super chat, but I am also curious, Riffs, what instrument do you play in the band? Or did you say, and I cleared the notification and now I can't see it. Like the shelves, thank you. They're cute. We're doing what we can to spruce things up. Tips on how to shave my head, the sides, without making it look like a dictator. I don't know. I mean, I just shave my head. I know some people will do like a fade where it'll, kind of gradually get a little bit longer at the top, and then they have the like part on top that's a little bit longer. But I just prefer to have like a fully clean, smooth side shave, and I basically like fuck it up a little bit each time, and you just kind of have to hope that the average is not looking like shit, even though little parts of it are messed up kind of at all times. Riffs No Leads says, in the band from last night, I play guitar, and I also play bass in another band. Cool. Very cool. I need to quit losing my wide tooth comb. It is massive, and I need it for my stupid curly hair. I love it, but it is not happy right meow. I just don't brush my hair. I comb through the tangles in the shower. And that's kind of it. I basically don't mess with my hair most of the time, which maybe I should. I don't know, whatever. It's like up a lot of the time anyway. Anyway, nobody's here for me to talk about my hair. I'm curious how the streams will perform if I give them titles that are a little bit more like acknowledging that we're just gonna chill. Probably they're not gonna perform as well, but we might end up with like the cool people. Excuse me. Oh my gosh, that sneeze was creeping up on me for quite a few seconds there. It was weird. And like, I don't think that I'm sick. I don't think so. It might just be dusty. I don't know. Anyway, I am just now noticing that I sound a little bit congested, but that's fun. Seems like you're in a good mood. Yeah, I mean, I had some technical difficulties before stream that were a little bit challenging. Uh, I did so many social things this week. See, I'm wearing blue. I feel like we need to contrast. If I'm wearing blue, we need something else. Excuse me. There we go. Just purple. Purple's good. Yeah, so I did a lot of very productive things this week. I'm having a difficult time getting productive as far as making video essays is concerned. I am having like a lot of reluctance, and there's a lot of very easy distractions. I have a lot of stuff that I could be doing, you know, and so I'm just finding myself, not doing a great job of being productive writing videos or anything related to that. But I have been very, I feel, excuse me, that I've been very productive in like, I visited some places this week and I met people out in the community, and I'm kind of like learning what kinds of people are out there, and you know, spending money at local businesses. Hey, thank you, BN, for becoming a member on YouTube. Thank you very much. You'll get access to cool stuff, and you get a fun colored name in the chat, and it's all good stuff. YouTube does keep a large portion of those donations, and I don't get them until the following month, but I still count them toward the stream goal for the day. The band name is Schmutzend Filthhound in German. We play anarcho-punk / metal with very A-cab lyrics and other lefty stuff. That's fun. Sounds like a good time. I really love that people have this like deep, inspiring, creative urge. Like, but it's, okay, I kind of want to field your guys' thoughts about this. Do we feel like creativity itself is like a muscle that needs to be practiced? Because I feel like, when I was a teenager, I just had like all this creative energy, and, part of it was, you're just like enrolled in art classes and you're enrolled in writing classes because you're in high school, and you're like, so you're kind of in the practice of doing those things. And I love how the egg almost glows against the wall. Yeah, it's a silk filament, so it's like shiny, like almost metallic kind of. But yeah, and I used to like write poetry, and I like would go walk in, like taking walks around the neighborhood and like take photos of things, and then go inside and like edit the photos and play around learning like what does the different stuff do in the photo editing software. And I just don't like casually do stuff like that anymore. And I want to, and there's some easy stuff, you can get into it easy by doing like, oh, I'm going to follow a Bob Ross video, right? So, okay, whatever. Bob Ross has a couple that are made for colorblind viewers, so it just uses like black and white paint. Cool. Okay, I can buy black and white paint. I could even buy like decent quality paints, get like a set of paints and one canvas, and I don't even need a proper easel if I'm only going to do it once. Right, so you can do stuff like that where you're like, I'm just going to sort of follow, or even in crochet. Most of the time in crochet, I'm following a pattern. And so it's not really creative. It's mostly just like, can I pay attention? Do I understand what the pattern is trying to have me do? Am I able to execute it? Am I able to keep track of my stitches? How is it looking? Blah, blah, blah. But it's not like a creative thing. Thank you, Jen. That's very sweet. Appreciate you being here. So yeah, but I feel like the creative aspect is something that I'm like, I really don't know how to break back into it. It just almost feels like it's not even suited to me anymore, even though I used to. I mean, and maybe before it's like, when you're a teenager, you write poetry because you just have a lot of feelings and you need to get them out somehow. And sometimes, there have been a couple times over the past couple of years that I've written poetry. I wrote a poem after my cat died, because I just had a lot of feelings all of a sudden, specifically about I donated the remainder of his insulin to the local homeless shelter. And that's what really hit me. And I was like, okay, I need to get these feelings out. And then I wrote a poem about leaving Kansas and about like, well, I mean, it wasn't literally about leaving Kansas. It was about my grief of leaving Kansas, but it was like acknowledging the, you know how people kind of evoke this concept of like spiritual kookiness happening in the woods where they're like, ooh, there's the fae and like a lot of nature magic stuff in fantasy is oriented around trees and like, oh, the leaves in the trees, the leaves are speaking to something, or there's a face carved on the side of a tree or something. But this poem was more about like those same kind of kooky nature details set in like the prairie. So occasionally I get like a feelings need to happen moment, but I don't think that's the same as like consistently being able to engage in creativity. That's just having some feelings that need to come out, and it happens to come out in the form of like poetry, you know? And like not even particularly good poetry, if we're being real. Got to do silly things. You know, like yeah, I do think that there's an interesting connection that we could make between play and creativity. Like are you are you going to find it easier to feel creative if you are engaging in kind of non-structured play? By which I mean like playing a video game is probably not going to result in a boost in creativity because video games tend to be like a series of tasks. You know, it's not the same as like thinking creatively. If you're playing unstructured, then you might be like coming up with new rules to the game as you're playing it, or you know, having to like think of new ways to do something that maybe is like boring now, or I don't know. I can definitely see you as a poet person. Just call me a faggot, you know? uh yeah, am I going to become one of those spoken word poetry people? One of those slam poetry people? Absolutely not. I do occasionally watch those videos when they cross the timeline, but I think that there's always kind of a lingering feeling like this is a little bit cringe. Maybe it ties into that. I just saw a video across the timeline and I did not watch it, but it was basically like trying is cool again. And I think that it probably ties into this concept that like being sincere is kind of cringe. You know, like poetry, especially if you speak your poetry, is cringe. Or you know, if you're posting a TikTok that's of you very seriously acting a part, um, in a way that's not like a skit, but is like more like an audition tape, that's cringe to me, right? And I think it's because of the irony poisoning of our era that like creates emotional distance in everything that we do, basically. No worries, Riffs. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for your donation. I appreciate you. I hope you have a good rest of your day. P.S. Sincerity is good. True. Katie says, I've been waiting for a set of paint that I bought at Black Friday. I bought 500 gold bags for colorant. 500 gold, not 500 grams. God, my brain is so soup today. It's like I'm already dumb, and then the headache is just like, yikes. A tube of the Blackest Black 4.0 from Stuart Semple. I want to paint again pretty bad. Nice. That's fun. I actually just threw away some acrylic paints that I've had since I was a teenager. I was like, these paints are, God, like probably 16 years old. It's so funny too that I just moved and I absolutely had the opportunity to get rid of some of this stuff beforehand. But I think like there were some obvious big things that I got rid of. And then now that I'm in my new space and I'm like better able to see, oh, these things no longer serve me. Or, you know, like these paints are super fucking old. When am I going to actually use them? And like, are they going to be any good even? Like, I'm just going to throw them away. Like, there's no point in keeping them. Uh, yeah. So since I moved, I have a little Goodwill pile of stuff that I literally brought with me across the country. And now I'm like, I'm letting you go. Kitty recommends going to Goodwill, finding a painting that is on canvas to buy from there, because most of the time it's way cheaper than a regular canvas, and the underpainting can lend something very interesting, especially if you pick a painting that has a lot of opposite energy from what you want to paint. I mean, you're supposed to like put a layer of priming paint on the canvas anyway, so I guess you could just buy a shitty painting at the Goodwill and just fucking prime over it. That's interesting. That's an interesting thought. But it's interesting. Yeah, just it's just fun to think about. Like how do you get creative energy? How do you make your brain do something that you want it to do but it is not particularly good at doing, you know? Like my partner recently has been like consistently wanting to sit down and mess with Legos. Like we recently took apart a bunch of Lego things that we had built previously, and now he's like building stuff and wanting to play creatively, and I'm like, I don't really understand this activity. I have never been the kind of person who can just play with like a handful of loose Legos and like come up with something. I need a little bit more structure than that in my play. It's the same reason why I get bored with Minecraft. It's well, like creative mode. I get bored with creative mode Minecraft because I'm just like, okay, cool. I built a cool tower. Like, what's the point of the tower now? What am I gonna use it for? You know, I'll play Minecraft on survival mode until I get to a place where I'm self-sustaining, and then I'm like, okay, I'm bored now. Art students will do this thrift store painting thing. They will then donate the painting back over and over, and you can find some cool paintings with like 10 layers of paint. That's fun. It's interesting how that's like an acknowledgement that art isn't always like meaningful, or that like the art acquires meaning in being erased almost. You know, that like I guess I would think if I finished a painting, I would feel the need to keep it, right? Because it's like a finished, fixed representation of a work that you've done. But I, I don't know. Like there are going to be pieces along the way that are like not of high artistic value, if for no other reason than like what you were doing was a specific study, or you were specifically copying something in order to practice a skill or something. You know, like there's going to be art that is made just as a form of practice that the artist doesn't hold a high value to, and then also ends up in a thrift store for $5. So like it clearly doesn't hold a high value, broadly speaking. Kitty says, I think more art should be like a sand mandala. You mean like acknowledging like transient impermanence and embracing transient impermanence? I do think it's an interesting concept. My partner has done this for years. He'll like make something out of paper. He'll make an origami thing, and then he'll like crush it and throw it away. And people are like, and he's like, things don't last forever. And I'm like, why are you so weird? Oh gosh. But I do think it's good. Like I was just having the conversation this morning that, you know, it's good to like prepare ahead of time for the fact that things are going to break, and the fact that people are going to die, and the fact that pets are going to die. I think that part of the problem, we are so devastated when that prized thing that's hanging on the wall gets knocked off the wall and breaks, or when our pets die or family members, that we are so in denial about the impermanence of things, and like so in denial about the transient nature of matter and of life, that we end up getting hit by a truck and like blindsided when loss comes into our lives. So I just think it's good to like pay attention and embrace that things are impermanent. Is this a painting that you made, Kitty? Kitty says, I carried a painting called These Boots around for over a decade. It was actually because there was a huge flaw in the painting that no one but me could see, and I finally let it go a few years ago, and I'm happy about it. I hated that painting. What were you doing? You were just keeping it as a reminder, like, bitch, you're imperfect. Guess what? You suck. Like, why were you keeping that? What a weird person. Did you let it go, like, when you moved to Oregon? My cat is being very sweet. Also, he's down here. Um, he's doing the thing where he's curled up and his little paw is like, he's like covering his eyes. Oh boy. So we did, I guess, I hate to just never talk about the news, but I don't know that there is anything that's like spicy this week. Do we have any spicy news this week? Since Wednesday, anyway. I let it go when I let Polly go. It went with the person who swept through and out of my life like a hurricane. Wow. You do have this, like, whoop, hold on. Comedian Bill Burr went on a profanity-laced rant in which he blamed billionaires for people's suffering and demanded that they be put down, quote, like effing rabid dogs, during an episode of his Monday morning podcast. So this is Fox News, pearl clutching over Bill Burr, saying that billionaires should be put down like dogs. That's his words, not mine. And, Dead Domain points out, suddenly people don't like it when comedians are, quote, speaking truth to power and their jobs, quote, poking fun at everyone when, quote, nothing is off limits. So that's kind of fun. I don't know that there's a lot to add to it. I mean, like, I think people like Bill Burr are the only people who can feel like they can confidently say this shit without having the CIA show up at their house or the FBI or whatever. Although, yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious to see what happens. Like, I mean, it's been, when was that, the 17th? It's been a week now. I haven't heard anything about Bill Burr getting arrested or anything, or even about anyone like Elon Musk saying anything about it. This is like Fox News responding to it, but I haven't really seen any more mainstream coverage of this. What's up, Luke? Hope you're having a good day too. Let's see. So, I mean, like, that's like noteworthy, but I don't know what there is to say about it. Luigi Mangione fanfic. Yeah, I'm not surprised that that exists. Oh, so I just want to, I guess, acknowledge that we have, obviously, there's a tuberculosis outbreak in Kansas City, which we've talked about briefly before. And now there's like a measles outbreak in Texas, or like this says broadly in the Southwest. So I don't know if this is also in like New Mexico and Arizona, but so Texas reporting a rise in measles cases. which is partially because people are doing this whole like, I'm gonna choose which vaccines to get, or we're not doing any vaccines, or like artificially slowing down. I mean, not artificially slowing down, really, but like some people get freaked out by the fact that like they give kids multiple vaccines at the same time. And like, I think that the reason they do that is because they have figured out that it doesn't really hurt the kids that much. So, I don't know though. I mean, our society treats children like commodities and doesn't really prioritize their health and well-being, and so shit, maybe like for I don't know, like maybe there is some kind of suffering that's happening that is not even being studied. But I've gotten like COVID and flu vaccines at the same time. When I was like 15, I went and got like 3 or 4 different vaccines boosted all at the same time. And I feel like it's fine. You're sick for a couple days, and you can be sick for a couple days once instead of sick for a couple days like 3 different times, you know? So, yeah, but yeah, the measles is on the fucking uptick. Also because of probably immune deficiency in general, but like very specifically, you can point to, I mean, it's the measles, mumps, rubella that all of the initial anti vax hysteria was about. It, looking back at like the H Bomber Guy video and his very accurately detailed history of the course of events, it's MMR. So measles is included in that. And so it makes sense that measles would be one of the diseases that's resurging on account of it being one of the vaccines that people are freaked out about getting. Also, I was just watching a video from I believe a nurse or a doctor, and she was talking about how she recently had a mom come into her office and their kid very obviously, well, they had been in and out of clinic for a couple weeks because of like cold and flu symptoms. And then by the time this woman saw the baby, uh, it was fully like whooping cough. And the mom was like, oh, I don't, we haven't had any vaccines. Um, and like, oh, I went and I read about whooping cough after we talked about it. And it's like, fine, you can just give this, what is it? It's like an antibiotic or something. And it'll just clear up and be fine. And the doctor was like, well, okay, so that medicine, yes, it does work like that, but it only works like that when we catch the disease very early. But the problem with whooping cough is that the initial symptoms look like any other cold or flu. I mean, I'm not going to say any other cold or flu. Really, we need to stop framing the flu as like no big deal, because the flu is consistently deadly. It's just only deadly to vulnerable people, so we don't give a shit, right? So, but we should acknowledge that the flu is like bad. But anyway, it mimics other milder upper respiratory sicknesses. And by the time you get to the point where they're having trouble breathing and they're coughing and having a hard time catching their breath, that very easy antibiotic stuff doesn't work. So, but like, how would you know to test for whooping cough earlier? And so that's why we vaccinate against it, because it is hard to catch it initially, and it has like such a devastating mortal effect on babies. And it's also like that cough with the struggling to breathe and everything can last for like 8 to 12 weeks after the initial flu symptoms part of the illness. So it's quite a while that you're battling it, and quite a while that you have to be concerned about whether your baby is going to like make it through the night because they can't breathe. And it's funny because at least what this doctor said in the TikTok was that the mom said like, gosh, I just wish there had been some way to prevent this. And it's like, I don't know. I have encountered, since I moved, at least 2 people who are to some degree anti-vax, and we're talking about it. Like, I don't know to what degree any other person who I've interacted with, but at least 2 people I have either overheard or have directly been vaccine skeptical to me. And I'm like, I need to come up with a script of how to deal with this in public because I don't think I can. What I have been doing has been just kind of like whatever, like ignoring it. But if this is going to be something that I keep seeing on a regular basis, I'm going to have like at least a quick, like, I need to state my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, I need to correct the record because I feel like people should at least, I feel like those statements should at least not go unchallenged, particularly if there are people overhearing the conversation. You know, like I think that we need to push back against anti vax sentiment, if not for the sake of the person who is being anti vax, at least for the sake of like society. Because I feel like, you know, this is what I have control over. What I have control over is what happens in the interactions that I have in my daily life in my community. And like, I don't have control over what they say on the news, but I know that I can at least be a voice for reason among the people. And I feel like I have a responsibility to do that because I know the truth about these things because I care about knowing the facts. Yeah, all these Victorian diseases popping back up. Also, if a baby catches something, then everything in a mile radius gets it. Yeah, I mean, because babies, because of their weakened immune system, so I don't actually know if this is true, but I could potentially conjecture that a baby having a weakened immune system means that they have stronger symptoms and their body doesn't fight it off as well. And also that because they are babies, they don't have the knowledge or mobility to like cover their mouth when they sneeze. Peacheek asserts, I guarantee in a couple years the mainstream Republican Party will be flat earthers, considering how quick they became anti vaxxers. I feel like the anti vax, you know, it's weird because I used to associate anti vaxxers with like a fringe kind of progressive movement, like a fringe part of the progressive movement, you know, like I associated it with like these hippie moms. Um, but then it became a right wing thing. But I also kind of wonder to that, you know, like maybe many of these people who were kind of like liberal leaning, who ended up anti vax originally, are just people who are susceptible to the kinds of narratives that have now been adopted by the right wing. So it could be that they were more progressive then, but had all of the underlying traits that have made people gradually get more Republicanish or conservative. There is a pipeline. Yeah. I sense that there's a pipeline there, which is really interesting because I hadn't really thought about that before. But the kind of suburban white hashtag liberal moms, that's the kind of person that I'm imagining representing the anti-vax movement originally back in the day. Concerned moms, you know, I'm thinking of the concerned affluent to some degree moms. Uh yeah, and like now those are the kind of people who are like, what is that? What's the phrase? WASP? White American, I can't remember what WASP stands for. I'm sure someone knows, but yeah, it's just weird the kind of like social patterns that you start to see over time and the connections. It's just like what we talk about all the time with like the atheist movement and the skeptic movement, and they became very anti social justice and like, yeah, it's the same kind of through line into the alt right pipeline. White Anglo Saxon Protestant. Cool, thank you. Phoebe says white Anglo Saxon people. Cool. Yeah. So that's kind of who I'm thinking of. Sort of waspy types, um, but like neoliberal wasps. Thank you for your assistance, everybody. It's so great having a large group of folks who are willing to help me when I don't know the words. It's helpful. Oh, geez. But I wonder, what is this all going to look like? You know, I'm here watching it happen. these movements of people as they get caught up in whatever, and then things emerge out of this other movement and whatever. I wonder how this is all going to look historically, because maybe it is the case that there are a lot of social nuances like this in historical, like political time, like times of political turmoil is how I will shorthand that. But that it just gets like flattened in the historical record, or is maybe this some particular thing about the internet age and the interconnectedness of communication being fairly unique to the last 50 to 60 years? I originally used to think that the only people that were against vaccines were religiously prohibited, but now it's just people who are paranoid and ignorant. Yeah, yeah, like, and like like lady that I was talking to about it said that the vaccine causes inflammation, and I was like, so does COVID. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I also think that people, I don't know. There's a lot of focus on inflammation, which is fine, except that people like think about it in a way that I think is ultimately not very helpful. I don't know, whatever. We're like, but you can tell if somebody is kind of into the woo woo medicine if they're like, oh my God, how's your inflammation? Oh my God, you need to include this herbal supplement in your diet because it really helps reduce inflammation. It's like, we all have inflammation because we're fucking stressed out. And like, I mean, it's probably dietary to some extent, but like, certain vegetables cause inflammation. You know what I mean? Like fucking broccoli and brassicums cause like gut problems, which then causes inflammation. Like, okay, so I'm even if you're making the healthy choice, you're still potentially gonna have inflammation because like human bodies are shitty. Oh yeah, minority stress, exactly, Phoebe. What's up, Sophie? Hey, Byron, how goes? Also, breathing causes inflammation. If we didn't exist, we wouldn't have problems. That's fair. That's fair. So, yeah, I just think people can be so funny. Can't stay long today, but I was at the Biophysical Society's annual meeting last week. Tons of the people who go are NIH funded. A lot of the talks and some of the posters were canceled due to the chaos. It's all connected to the rise of fascist anti intellectualism and kleptocracy. Um, yeah, it's like having such further reaching impacts than we expected. I think that people, I don't know that I had a clear expectation that they were going to come in and just like start firing a bunch of people. Like, I guess I didn't realize that Elon Musk was going to be so involved. I think that's probably the thing that is the weirdest to me. I was expecting Trump and the Republican Party to do stupid things through the normal bureaucratic process. I think I did not expect Elon Musk to be involved, and like now we're just creating a new agency without congressional oversight. Um, like that part I did not expect, I will say. So yeah, and I know several people whose research is potentially at risk. Katie Montgomery did a video on a nurse who said she would leave if a trans person needed resuscitation. People are, of course, perfectly okay with this, it seems. Yeah, the idea that people um, are just like okay with trans people dying, or like they think it's a good thing. Like the idea that people think it's a good thing that all these employees are getting fired. It's like, dude, do you have any idea what this is going to do to the economy? What's going to happen to the economy if there's suddenly a bunch of unemployed people? You're just going to call them parasites for now, like seeking unemployment benefits or for having to go to the fucking food, what is it called? The food pantry to get free food or something, you know? Like, these people are going to end up needing SNAP and welfare, and you're going to be like mad at them because the government slashed a bunch of jobs. But then also, you're going to plan your stupid fucking white picket house family vacation this summer, and you're going to want to go to the national park, and the lines are going to be long, and there's going to be trash everywhere, and the biodiversity is going to be all fucked up because somebody dropped a bag of Cheetos in a cave. You know, like, man, so one thing that I want to do today is I want to react to a video by Rebecca Watson. I am not going to do it yet. I want to save it for like the part of the stream where my voice starts to get tired, so maybe in about an hour. I mean, I guess it depends on how long the show is going to be today. I hadn't really planned. Oh shit, I didn't eat anything. So at some point I'm going to need to grab a quick little snack, a quick little snacky snoo. I do have coffee. That'll put it off for a little while, I suppose. But this video is called "No, I Will Not Welcome ex-MAGA to the Resistance." And oh shit, fuck. No. I hate it when you click the back button on like YouTube and it like redoes your whole homepage instead of giving you the homepage that you clicked off of.
As I've mentioned,
I just want to see her fucking thumbnail. I guess I posted in the Discord. So the thumbnail of this video says, "Are they victims?" And the title is "No, I Will Not Welcome ex-MAGA to the Resistance." And I just think it's interesting, this idea of like, I mean, I think that maybe there was one version of the thumbnail that I saw that really caught my attention on this. But oh, here, it's somebody in the comments that I saw said something that I thought summarized the tone of the video and the tone of the culture right now. Someone basically saying, "Oh, I supported Trump, but I didn't want this, and that means I still hate you, but now this is hurting me. No, thank you." So I think that probably summarizes this a bit. This idea that like these people are suddenly upset about things that are happening after supporting Trump, and it's like, yeah, people have the like inability to care when things are happening to other people, or they actively think it's a good thing that trans people are getting hurt by this administration or whatever. But now they're like, oh, well, this is also hurting me. Now my Social Security payments have been paused or whatever, like whatever it is. I don't actually know if anybody's Social Security has been paused, but you know what I mean. This makes me want to get drunk. I know. I did last night, and that's why I have a headache. Regret. I've had several friends lose their job this last few weeks. Gosh. And it makes me so sad too, because like I'm kind of entering this time of my life where I don't exactly know what the next steps look like as far as like my personal professional career situation. And I have a young person who I'm trying to help direct, and it's like through that, like it helps you reflect on yourself. If you're helping mentor somebody, it helps you reflect on like, if you're trying to encourage someone, you're telling them, oh my God, there's all these possibilities, you could do all these different things. It does affect you and make you think, okay, there's all these different things. And it helps reveal what I am passionate about, which like I'm realizing that I'm very passionate for conservation and working with animals. And like, there is part of me that does feel like I could be a park ranger or like someone who works in some conservation like that. But that stuff is reliant on public funding. So I like your gnome mug with the rainbow hat. Thank you. My mother-in-law gave it to me. She's a very sweet lady. Never imagined the face-eating leopards would eat my face. Yep. I'm not allowed to drink for being sad or mad reasons, only celebration. I think that that's a good call, Kitty. To be fair, yeah, like the last couple of days, I think it's just been like, you know, to have an enjoyable evening. At least for me, I'm not like specifically drinking because I feel bad. And I do think that's a good rule. Because that's the way to you associate drinking with a bad thing, but then bad things happen all the time. But you can't. I feel like you can't do both. Like associating alcohol with good things and bad things. I feel like that's a tricky reward system where you're basically just reinforcing it all the time in all of the different ways. Mentoring encourages mindful and thoughtful interrogation of what you're trying to teach for sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I'm like when I'm thinking about all the possibilities of what career a person could have, especially because I just moved to somewhere where there are a ton of public parks and like there are people who need to work there. Like every park that is clean because some person comes and like picks up trash and takes the trash bags away, um, and cleans the bathrooms and like all this stuff. There's like somebody who does that and like stocks the soap in the bathroom and everything. Uh, and it sucks that so many park workers are losing their jobs because of like how important I feel that work is. Like to me, I don't know that there's anything I don't think like I respect the laws around conservation more than any other kind of laws. And I respect the people who dedicate their life to public service through commitment to those natural causes more than many other public servants, you know? Um, just like we respect the boys in blue who are delivering the mail, but we don't respect the boys in blue who are brutalizing citizens for protesting, you know? I just, I have so much respect for people who do that. And I wish that that type of line of work wasn't in jeopardy right now. Does that make sense? Like, I wish that we could expand on that. And like, I would like to live in a society where we put more and more and more resources toward preserving nature, especially, and like, because that involves battling climate change and like trying to make our ecosystems resilient to those things. Because even if we stopped all carbon emissions today, there would still be impacts that would last into the next several decades. Street sweeping career. I don't mean I want to keep towns clean. I was specifically talking about the park as like a shorthand for like nature preserves. Oh yeah, I've known somebody who had that rule before too of like never drinking more than 2 nights in a row, even if it's for celebratory reasons. Can't drink when mad or sad, and not allowed to drink Long Island's Long Island iced tea. Yeah, it'll get you fucked up pretty quick. Is my understanding of that's the whole reason people drink a Long Island. Oh, good gracious. Goodness gracious. Mm. I feel like the purple light makes this orange look crazy. It's so far over there that you can't really see it though because it's behind chat, which is unfortunate. It's got like a death's head moth and like flowers and mushrooms and shit on it. It's pretty cute. Oh goodness. I drink straight whiskey. Nice, Jay. I'm a fan of a bourbon, once in a while. A little bourbon. A little burb. What else fun happened this week? I had something else that I gave a link to myself in the. Honestly, I think rum specifically should be illegal. Why? Oh, so this is a note. This is a story that's kind of unfolding still, but I do want to talk about it. Uh, So there are many court battles ongoing right now because of the executive orders, and various lawmakers and attorneys general across the country are filing suit against the federal government for basically government overreach. And one of those cases I want to read a little bit about. A federal court is hearing arguments about President Trump's second attempt to restrict trans people serving in the military. The preliminary injunction hearing in Washington is being covered by Law Dork's Chris Geidner. Transcripts show the judge is fact checking and asking for evidence from Trump Justice Department lawyers to back up a need for such a ban. The hearing is about one of two legal challenges to Trump's order Talbot v. Trump. The National Center for Lesbian Rights and GLAAD filed on behalf of 6 active duty transgender military personnel and 2 trans Americans seeking to enlist. The judge in question is Anna Reyes, or Reyes, I don't know how to pronounce that. Reyes. She fact checked the Trump order's false claims about there being, quote, 2 sexes. She says this executive order is premised on an assertion that's not biologically correct. She cites that there are anywhere near 30 intersex examples. Anyone who doesn't have XX or XY chromosomes is not just male or female, they are intersex. Saying, if I'm intersex, where am I allowed to go? None of Trump's executive orders about trans people and, quote, 2 sexes mentions the reality of intersex people. So obviously, like, they don't say 2 sexes as a means to attack intersex people. They're saying that to attack trans people, and I think intersex people are just catching strays. But she is correct that, like, the biological, like, reality is that many people do not fall cleanly into male or female by birth. And then trans people also don't fall neatly into male or female medically once we've transitioned, I guess. So, I don't I wish that we could more directly tackle the attack on trans people, but I also understand that the law is built on a lot of bullshit technicalities. So if you can catch them doing something on a technicality, I guess I respect that. Like if there's a more clear answer with the male and female thing, I guess. Like if she's like, this is simply not biologically correct because intersex people exist, I don't know that that's the right answer, but if it works, then I will take it. I'm boycotting American products as much as I can, and boycotting American whiskey right now. Oh, okay. Jurisprudence fetishist gets off on technicality. True. That's good. So this is a screenshot of the transcript, I believe. So Judge Reyes says that Executive Order 14183 adopts the definitions of a separate executive order called Defending Women from Gender Ideology, Extremism, and Restoring Biological Truth to the federal government. And that executive order states, quote, sex shall refer to an individual's immutable biological classification as either male or female. Furthermore, it states, quote, it is the policy of the United States to recognize 2 sexes, male and female. Do you see that, or do you remember that? Jason C. Lynch, who I believe is the defending attorney for the United States government, says, I will take the court's word for it. Judge Reyes pushes, saying, you understand as a matter of biology, it's just incorrect that there are only 2 sexes, right? Jason Lynch asks clarifying question, do I understand that to be incorrect as a biological matter? Judge Reyes says, yes, it is incorrect as a biological matter. You understand that, right? And Jason Lynch says, I don't understand that to be incorrect as a biological matter. Judge Reyes says, you understand that not everyone has an XX or XY chromosome, right? And Jason Lynch says, honestly, no, I don't. Like, my dude, like, this is the thing about, like, cis people who are uneducated on the topic, like, trying to assert themselves on this, like, I there are cis people who are educated on the topic and who I appreciate it. Like Forrest Valkai, super cool dude, appreciate him. He's very good at explaining the biological reality of the situation, and he's taught me stuff because he's a biologist and he understands these things, and he's a decent science communicator as well. What are you doing, baby? Um, but yeah, like for this guy to be like, no, I've never heard of an intersex person before. I've never heard of biology having a goof and not perfectly doing XX or XY. Fucking moron. Judge Reyes has a giant paragraph to give him on this. She says, it's actually kind of a really important point because this executive order is premised on an assertion that's not biologically correct. There are anywhere near about 30 different intersex examples. So someone who does not have just XX or XY chromosome is not just male or female, they're intersex. And there are over 30 potential different intersex examples. We've got genetic differences, we've got people with XXX chromosomes, we have androgen insensitivity, XY genetically that may have female external sex characteristics and internally have testes. There's a 5-alpha reductase deficiency that causes changes in testosterone metabolism, XY that may have female external genitalia or ambiguous genitalia. The point being, and I'm happy to have you guys brief this more if you want, but I'm telling you right now that there are people who are neither male or female, and so the premise of the executive order is just incorrect. Dude, just like I feel like a judge doesn't need to know this much about the science of a case. And like, this is the kind of the problem with the striking down the Chevron doctrine is that now every judge has to be a fucking expert in every single topic that could potentially cross their desk, as opposed to there being executive agencies with expertise in the matter who can make the decisions or at least strongly inform on the decisions that they're making in their interpretation of the law. But yeah, for this judge to be like I'm just gonna bust out like, yeah, there's a 5-alpha reductase deficiency that causes changes in testosterone metabolism. Like, I would not even have been able to put that into words like that. Like, there are so many different ways of being intersex that I wouldn't have even like thought of that particular one. Uh, so yeah, I really respect how much she knows about the topic. Forrest just remade his Sex and Sensibility essay. Nice. I don't think I watched the original one. I watched a one of his that it basically explained the SRY thing and like this gene turns on this gene over here and then this flips over here and like basically just the cascading chain of events that has to happen to make someone come out fully male, from starting from like the blueprint that kind of wants to trend toward female. Yeah, that video was awesome. I don't know that maybe I did see the Sex and Sensibility one. I just can't remember because it was forever ago. Regardless, the two-sex thing is an obvious government attack on a minority group. That's wrong by any measure. Yeah, right. Um, there's more on this too. Judge Reyes also asked, can we agree that the greatest fighting force is not going to be impacted in any way by less than 1% of the soldiers using a different pronoun than others might want to call them? Is that Judge Reyes saying it's frankly ridiculous? Would you agree with me that if our military is negatively impacted in any kind of way that matters, we all have a lot bigger problems than pronoun use? We have a military that is incompetent. Any common sense, rational human being knows that it doesn't. And she says, you have 10 days to find me a person, a commissioned officer who says that this is a problem within their ranks. It sounds like the judge did more preparation than the lawyer. It kind of does. If you want to get me an officer of the U.S. military who is willing to get on the stand and say that because of pronoun usage, the U.S. military is less prepared, I will be the first to buy you a box of cigars. She's just so fucking savage, and we haven't even gotten to the most fun part. we're kind of getting to the fun part here. She says this order calls an entire category of people dishonest, dishonorable, undisciplined, immodest, who lack integrity, people who have taken an oath to defend this country, people who have been under fire, people who have received medals for taking fire for this country. I want to know from the government whether that language expresses, quote, animus. Does that express animus? This is a policy from the President of the United States affecting thousands of people to call an entire group of people lying, dishonest people who are undisciplined, immodest, and have no integrity. How is that anything other than showing animus? And the DOJ's lawyer did not provide a yes or no answer. Jason Lynch did not provide a yes or no. And Reyes asserts, we are dealing with unadulterated animus. She described how this would work if she applied similar sweeping language to the Department of Justice's Lynch, who is a graduate of University of Virginia Law School. If she were to change the courtroom orders to, quote, bar people from UVA Law School from appearing in her court because, quote, they're all liars and lack integrity and are undisciplined and can't possibly meet the high rigors of being a lawyer for the government. Reyes asked Lynch to sit down. Okay, so here's the thing. So he said he's trying to say this does not express animus in any constitutional, and then she says, in any common sense way. And he says, I don't have an answer for you. She says, you do have an answer. You just don't want to give it. People can make solid arguments as to why some or even most transgender people shouldn't be in the military. We're dealing with unadulterated animus. We are dealing with the President of the United States, dealing with a group of people serving their country, calling them liars. Yeah, so then she changed the courtroom orders to bar people who graduated from UVA law with this explicit statement because they're all liars. She then made the DOJ lawyer sit down based on that rule that she just arbitrarily changed. And then after he did sit down, she called him back up and asked whether that was a display of animus. She straight up said, go sit down. And then he went and sat down, and then she said, get your ass back up here. Are you trying to tell me that was not animus? Like, she's so savage. This is crazy. Like, I didn't know that court could be like this. That's crazy. But in a good way, you know, I'm happy. I'm happy about it. Sign me up for whatever gender is least shootable. Fucking true. I love that. I love that so much. She asked for evidence to back up statements in the executive order, and the DOJ says there is no specific evidence at this time. There you go. They're just gonna acknowledge. Yeah, it's slander. Slander. I haven't actually read the executive order, but I'm assuming that the judge is quoting the executive order when she's like, he's calling an entire group of people dishonest, dishonorable, undisciplined, immodest. Good court stories aren't common enough. Yeah. Glad Law and NCLR made the case before the judge that even before the discriminatory order is written into military policy, there is harm to trans service members serving today. There is concrete harm from the executive order itself, which affects their ability to do their jobs, says Glad's lawyer, Jennifer Levi. Or she works there. I don't know if she's a lawyer. I would argue that this two sexes thing is not a fact, but rather a belief, and would therefore be unconstitutional because of separation of church and state. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that, I mean, probably the part of the problem here is that these people, they may have a religious motivation or a secular hatred. It doesn't really matter. They may be motivated by religion, but they have learned the language of secular values, and so they will do things like quote studies and stuff and like twist statistics to suit their narrative because they understand, like, very broadly speaking, that people respond to studies, or that like you can at least point to a study to support you, and that's like when they do it, it's an appeal to authority fallacy. When we do it, it's because we are acknowledging the rigorous process by which we come to understand truth. Yeah, and that's the problem, is that you can say that it's a belief that is like a religious imposition on other people, but they will say, no, it's because trans people are criminals and trans people commit suicide more than most people and all this. You know, they'll like point, they'll gesture at, or like, oh, all these trans people are hurting kids, and like, oh, look at how many more people identify as trans in the young generation than in the older generations. Like they will evoke secular values of truth seeking even though they don't actually hold those beliefs themselves. Judge Reyes continues noting a pattern of animus coming from the Trump administration toward trans Americans, reading a list of actions against trans people within the first month. She says, "You cannot tell me that transgender people are not being discriminated against." She cited the fact that censors removed the word transgender from the Stonewall National Monument website, which is run by the National Park Service. She says, "We are literally erasing their contributions to modern society. It screams animus." I have, so a follow up to this. So, like, yay, that was fun. She's like, bow, 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 fuck you. That's good stuff. I've heard that they're considering throwing out her ruling. AP News. AP News. Okay, I knew it was gonna ask me to fucking vote. Or fucking donate, sorry. Yeah, exactly, alien. Like, yeah, I'm suicidal. Thanks for noticing, right wingers. Now please stop making it hard for me to exist. Maybe I would feel better. No? Man. My lower back has been hurting the last couple days, and I don't know if it's because, like, I've been out walking around and stuff more, and, like, I don't know, but my lower back, or if it's just that maybe my bed sucks, but man, is this just, even if you have a really nice bed, do you just wake up with your back hurting? Is that what being in your 30s is like? Excuse me. Okay. Excuse me. So, I want to look at this update. This is from AP News. Justice Department files complaint against Judge weighing challenge to Trump's transgender troop ban. Oh my God. The in that was so weird to me. I would bet that Anna Kasparian will say Gulf of America to get into the press briefing room. Maybe. Justice Department filed a complaint on Friday accusing a federal judge in Washington of misconduct during hearings over President Donald Trump's executive order, which calls for the banning of trans troops from serving in the military. Complaint filed by Attorney General Pam Bondi's chief of staff, Chad Mizell, marks an escalation of the Republican administration's criticism of the judiciary, which has been weighing a slew of legal challenges to the Republican president's actions. The complaint to the chief judge of Washington Federal Court accuses U.S. District Judge Anna Reyes of inappropriately questioning a government lawyer about his religious beliefs and trying to, quote, embarrass the attorney with a rhetorical exercise during an exchange about discrimination. It is seeking an investigation, saying, quote, appropriate action should be taken to ensure that future hearings are conducted with the, quote, dignity and impartiality the public has a right to expect. Right, so they're gonna claim respectability politics, basically. Yes, I have an awesome bed and it kills my back. You are not an adult human until you have chronic back pain. Kitty says, yep. Wait, are you saying yep? Or you might just need to poop. I did poop. I'm sure that it's not that. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe there's more. But yeah, no, I think that it's just because I'm standing and walking more. Maybe I need to, like, strengthen my back specifically. I gotta do some morning glories or something. So maybe I just need to, like, actually strengthen that part of my body a little bit, very gently. Anyway, I am gonna start a new exercise routine soon. Figure that out. Anyway, so, but yeah, they'll use respectability politics and say, like, oh, well, this judge is acting inappropriately, or this judge is biased, to, like, just selectively not like selectively not take um the adjudications of liberally appointed judges. Like I'm pretty sure that this is a Biden appointed judge. So I could see potentially they're just going to say like, oh, well, she was appointed by Biden and, we're trying to change the country or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they will accept the judgments of Republican and Trump appointed. Sus, what do you mean by morning glory? Morning glory is a type of exercise where, hold on. Morning glory is where you have like a weight, like you have a weight and you like go down a little bit and then you come back up and you're holding your arms down and it's like you're working your lower back and then you come back up, right? That's a morning glory. I found some great nerve exercises that I need to share on Discord and I keep forgetting. Yeah, do it. Do it. Do it. Anyway, let's see. A representative from Reyes's chambers declined to comment Friday during the rhetorical. Yeah, this just says like, yeah, this reiterates what happened. I don't think. Oh, here we go. There is more. Another exchange cited in this complaint. The judge asked the attorney what, quote, Jesus would say to telling a group of people that they are so worthless that we're not going to allow them into homeless shelters, she continued. Do you think Jesus would be like, sounds right to me? The government lawyer responded, the United States is not going to speculate about what Jesus would have to say about anything. Which I guess is the right call to take. It's I don't know why she said that. I'm sure in context it made more sense. Helps with sciatica. Okay, cool. Nerve exercises that help with sciatica. I'm sure that I need to start working my posterior chain. My ankles have been popping and crackling lately, which I think means that I need to do more plantar stretches. I just need to stretch more in general, if we're being honest. I'm stretching now. You can't even stop me. Anyway, so the government wrote, an independent, impartial judiciary is fundamental to our system of justice. When judges demonstrate apparent bias or treat counsel disrespectfully, public confidence in the judicial system is undermined. Reyes is known for her stern rebukes of lawyers on both sides. In a different case earlier this month, she verbally rebuked former U.S. Solicitor General Seth Waxman, who is representing 8 government watchdogs suing the Trump administration over their firing. She denied an emergency motion and called it, quote, beyond comprehension to hold a hearing on a matter rather than resolving it in a, quote, 5-minute phone call. So she's been sharp-tongued toward people in the past, basically, and like including people who are opposing Trump, Trump administration has been ramping up its criticism of judges' overrulings, blocking parts of his ambitious agenda rolled out in the first weeks of his administration. AP continues. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt earlier this month accused judges of acting as, quote, activists rather than honest arbiters of the law. Supporters have been circulating pictures of judges online, making claims about their families and suggesting that the Republican president simply ignore their orders. Interesting. Reyes has also said that she will not rule before early March on this. Her questions and remarks, however, suggested she is deeply skeptical of the administration's reasoning for ordering a policy change. Reyes also lauded the service of several active duty troops who sued to block the order. She asks the attorney, if you were in a foxhole, would you care about these individuals' gender identity? And the attorney, who I assume is Jason Lynch, said that it would not be a primary concern of mine. So he's saying, I don't personally have an issue with it, but if it's the law to discriminate against them, then we should do that, I guess. If you're past age 30, everything pops for no reason. Enjoy. Thank you. How sweet of you. Okay, yeah. So the Trump's order, it says that uh, the identity of trans service members, AP, the gender identity. Why are you saying the sexual identity? That's so fucking weird. The gender identity of trans service members, quote, conflicts with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle, even in one's personal life, and is harmful to military readiness. Okay, so based on that, she's basically saying, okay, if you're saying that trans people are dishonorable, untruthful, and undisciplined because they are trans. Okay, so I see what she was saying now. Yeah, the lawyers are arguing that Trump's order openly expresses hostility and animus toward trans people. Cool. So, uh, like I said, they are opening an investigation into her now, but we'll just have to kind of see what happens with that because that's, I think, the most recent news. Yeah, it's basically like 1 day ago, I'm seeing articles about her conduct. So, because Friday they were like, we're launching an investigation, and now it's Sunday, it's the weekend. We will see what happens in the future with this. We are in a red scare moment, basically, because people suck. It is a little bit red scare. It is a little bit. Uh, I'm not usually worried about being specifically persecuted because of my political beliefs, but like we're kind of entering a time where there is concern. Honestly, the thing that has been most alarming to me over the last few weeks has been the declaration that they want to like investigate or reduce the amount of like SSRIs and ADHD medicine, and like basically there is intimations that there would be an assault on people with mental health issues or like anything that requires medicine for a brain problem, which obviously it's like, okay, well, that makes me feel like I should not take my Ritalin and I should save it for maybe those days when I really, really need it, or it makes me feel like maybe I should try to figure out how to live life without Ritalin because it has been so helpful to me, uh, like getting things done. I like, and I'm having an easier time now than before being motivated to do stuff, but it helps sharpen everything a bit, and I can definitely feel like that I'm dumb sometimes. Uh, and like that's something that I can't pull back from. Like I've been diagnosed as ADHD multiple times. I know you said that people in your life think you're cis, but do you not still worry they might see your videos? I mean, yeah. I mean, I just kind of have to like hope that if I meet someone in public, well, I mean, if I'm interacting with someone more than once, I will have to figure out like whether or not I'm comfortable with them knowing that I'm trans. But like when I'm talking most of the time, like most people in my life think that I'm cis. I mean, like people I see at the grocery store and will not see again, or something like that. Like most people assume that I'm cis. And I have to be like okay with the fact that I probably will meet people who've seen my videos or people who might Google me after the fact, like after meeting me or whatever. So I'm just kind of like, whatever. I'm hoping that if I meet people nearby who know who I am online, that they don't like tell anybody where I live or whatever, like, or that, whatever. Um, am I worried about being outed by the fact that I make videos? I mean, not really. I don't know. I guess I don't really think about the whole being outed by my videos thing. I think more about like my presence in the community being weird because someone recognizes me from online already. I agree, Noah. That's definitely, yeah. If you're forced to put your birth gender on your ID, it's like getting an armband with a star. And people tell me I'm overreacting. I'm sure the Germans thought that too. Yeah, like in the way that fucking Hunter Schafer, who is a beautiful young woman, she now has mail on her passport, and she's like, "Oh, I will find out next month when I have to travel for filming whether or not it's going to be a problem for me to have mail on my passport." Is like, so Hunter Schafer no longer has the safety of being stealth when she travels internationally, which will mean necessarily that there will be some places she cannot film, she cannot travel without risking being arrested or getting killed or something. Joining late, hope you're doing well. No worries, Bixie. Yeah, I am doing well. I've had a pretty good week. Yeah, I like spoke to a lot of people. I met a bunch of people. I learned some things about the town. You know, I'm getting involved locally. Oh, I guess the most exciting thing that I did this week was I have figured out uh my garden plot, cuz like obviously I live in a rental. I'm not going to fuck up the yard in the rental. Um so I found a community garden that I'm going to have a plot in. The plot is quite large compared to the one that I had last year. So I'm very excited. And I'll probably get up there and try to film sometime this week, just at least a short video to go on the other channel to be like, here's my garden plot. Here's like, what are some thoughts like people have? Like, what should I do? Um, it's going to be a plot that probably doesn't get, it's not going to get much morning sun. It will get more like uh, afternoon and evening sun. Nothing new, still crazy world. Is Musing Moss still playing Warcraft? Oh yeah, I mean I'm not doing it right this moment because I don't really feel the need to do it. But I could play World of Warcraft to kind of in the background to what we're doing right now. I'm not gonna like pay super close attention to what I'm doing in there, but obviously like yeah, it's just kind of to jolly things along in the background. But I'm so excited. And like one of the people that I met at the community garden place, she seems really chill. Uh, we are connected on social media now, and so I'm like, okay, there's at least one person who I feel like I could have an ongoing relationship with. A lot of the other people I chatted to this week are people like I might see again, but that I might not necessarily like see regularly enough to like have a social connection. And also being in the community garden with someone, and like she just has surgery, so she's like probably going to need help with stuff. So I can see it being a mutualistic kind of like, hey, you're having trouble with that because of your healing from surgery. Like, I can help you, whatever. Now I have a reason to invest in a relationship with someone because I'll be seeing them on a regular basis. And like, we have garden plots that are near each other. Um, so if one of us goes out of town, we might be like, hey, can you water the whatever at this week, whatever. Uh, so I'm kind of really excited about establishing some of those mutualistic relationships, just having stuff in common with people. And yeah, I am playing. I will play Warcraft later if we kind of simmer down some, because I have a lot of energy right now. I do want to watch this Rebecca Watson video in about 20 minutes probably, and then maybe after that we'll kick up some Warcraft. The stream is doing okay. Does it seem like the stream is at a decent quality? Because my internet was really fucking up before stream in a way that kind of scared me. Excuse me. And um I was hoping that it wouldn't be too squirrely, so just let me know if it is weird at any point. Excuse me. I don't know what happened with Relevant. He seemed chill again today, but apparently wasn't chill before. What happened? I missed that. I don't know what occurred. Wah. Okay, I think I'm seeing like a couple different videos of the same event. Like Dead Domain retweeted a couple. I'm curious what it is. I wonder if this even works. Do my headphones even work anymore? Yeah, they do. Okay. It's not noticeable if the quality is any different. Well, we were having like, it was like stuttering and freezing and stuff. And then I changed the quality to 720. So this is the second stream now since I changed that. So I'm just making sure, like, did those changes that I made result in a consistent difference in the stream quality? And like before the stream started, my internet was straight up like I'm hardwired in, I'm plugged in, and my internet was like off. Like it was saying that it was off, but like other people were using Wi-Fi and it was still working. Maybe it was like slowing down quite a lot, but it was still like connected. Yeah. Oh, it's because R Relevant used to be a Destiny orbiter, so he freaked out when it was, yeah, there was like recent allegations of sexual impropriety for Destiny, right? Okay, so Sophie said, sounds like people are getting used to their new realities, where I guess Destiny is a sex pest. Glad people are finally figuring that shit out. Okay, so I want to see what these are about. What are these about? What is happening here? I know it's probably not that loud for you guys, but it's like... So basically, like, this guy does not have... I'm assuming that it's like, this is a person who is not in uniform. So it's like, is this private security that you've hired? She's asking, is this your deputy? Like, have you deputized this citizen to take these actions? Men without badges detained a woman for speaking during a town hall, is what this is being presented as. That this entire room of people is just standing here as these dudes who... Some people are cheering this. These people without badges are just like dragging this woman out. She's not under arrest. She's just being removed. I feel like even security guards will wear like a badge, you know? What is even happening? Yeah. So this is I don't know where this is. Where is this happening? We have multiple angles on this too, because a lot of people had their phones out. What? Okay, so her name is Teresa Borenpole. She's been arrested for trespass and battery after biting a security guard during her removal from the KCRCC town hall. What's KCRCC? Kootenai Republican County Central Committee, representing North Idaho. So this is in North Idaho, where she's showing up to a committee town hall. That's the context that I am gathering. This person says that this woman said something the congressman didn't like. There were people refusing to show any badge or ID, demanded she leave, and put hands on her. And adding, if this happened at a Democrat rally, Republicans would be furious. This person says legitimate security guards at public events wear trade dress identifying themselves and the company that pays them. So yeah, who the fuck are these guys? And she's asking, like, is this your deputy? Is this a deputy you've appointed who is now touching me? And like, I don't know what she said though. And I'm not sure if there's going to be a recording of that readily available in the way that, like, of course people didn't have their phones out until she was being asked to leave.
Please get up or be escorted out.
And we're just taking care of the rabble rousers.
We're just taking care of the rabble rousers, said the guy on the microphone.
Actually, what's going to happen is everything's going to settle down, and we'll get back to
Idaho is on some crazy shit, though. Like, Idaho is weird. And someone said, as someone from the inland Northwest, not much truly shocks me anymore, but this is actually so fucking scary. The stories I'm hearing from back home right now are downright horrific and like nothing I've ever heard before. We aren't prepared for how violent and militant these people are. This Laura person said there are places in this country that serve as tactical testing grounds, places where you can see the future before it arrives. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho is one of those places. It appears that this woman was sitting peacefully, had exercised her First Amendment rights, when people without badges forcibly removed her. And then the below tweet is spin after she was assaulted by these 3 men. Who, again, is like, who the fuck is this? Here's another point of view. These men didn't have handcuffs, but zip ties, and they refused to identify themselves or their authority. Sheriff's badge, this person says. And then this person says, she asked him multiple times if the other men were his deputies, and he refused to answer. 3 men wouldn't show a badge or tell her who they were. It's almost like the sheriff knew it was wrong and couldn't officially arrest her, so he allowed these guys to do the dirty work. And then someone's like, hey, why don't you show this part where this rabid psycho bit people? And then Quinn says, I'm sure you're one of those people that would shoot someone if they walked through your front door, right? Self-defense, as you all scream. If some unidentified, badgeless goons puts their hands on someone and twists her arm, she's not allowed to fight back? Yeah, so basically, again, if it's like, okay, these men refuse to identify themselves, you are not claiming them as deputies. They are not wearing a badge as a security guard. Yeah, I think that this woman is absolutely justified in physically defending herself. Biting people or worse, frankly, like, is warranted in that situation. You can't just decide to put your hands on someone. But the problem is that this is tacitly happening with the support of the people on this committee, because keeping in mind that the KCRCC is a Republican committee. So it's the Republican Central Committee for Kootenai County. So yeah, like, that's the problem here, is that this is where the militia part comes in when you have a fascist takeover. That, like, citizens are doing things that are explicitly illegal. Like, assaulting a woman is explicitly illegal. Like, laying hands on a woman, carrying her out of the building without being imbued with the official authority to, you know, get someone on trespass charges or whatever. So they're doing something explicitly illegal with the, you know, the look the other way kind of attitude that the officials have, and that is where the militia comes in. Like, that is the problem. It's pronounced Coeur d'Alene. Suck my entire dick. I'm not doing it. Thank you, though. At least I'll know that I'm doing it incorrectly in the future. Ah. Yeah, springtime for Hitler. True. This person includes a Facebook video with full context and says she is dragged out by men who do not appear to be police for pointing out that town halls are supposed to feature citizen comment. Doesn't deserve to be pronounced correctly. Fair enough. Okay, I'm just gonna keep reading down this Twitter thread. with you because I'm like reading it. I didn't click in this Facebook video. The woman illegally detained is Teresa Borenpol. She has a history of standing up to the extremists in the KC, RCC, and Idaho Freedom Foundation. Nobody seems to know the identity of the men who forcibly detained her. And they were not even wearing masks. Like, they were just straight up, like, with their whole faces out. She is not on the list of people taken. So there's a moment of brief, like, where the fuck is she? She should be on this list of people taken to the police department if she was, but she wasn't. She was neither arrested nor charged. Update, she's okay. For everyone who asked why no one tried to help, people who did were also detained. Security guards walked past a man standing in the aisle and yelling at the people on stage so they could detain a woman who was sitting down. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. They walked past a man who was standing in the aisle and yelling at the committee members on stage and targeted a woman who was sitting down to detain her. That's crazy. These goons probably targeted Borenpol because they are convinced she pulled a fire alarm to disrupt a 2020 board meeting, and there is no evidence that she did this. You can hear these thugs mention the fire alarm in the video above. I've been told by a reliable source that Borenpol went to the emergency room after this assault, where she stayed for several hours and is now resting at home. Wow. She was not even close to the most disruptive person there. The claim that she bit them, the video does not show this. There are some screenshots of her looking rightfully furious, but she'd be within her rights to bite all of them. In America, we call that self-defense. He literally says she spoke up and now she doesn't want to suffer the consequences. Yeah, like that you should be kicked out of a town hall where you're supposed to have citizen comment. I know. I cannot imagine how scary that must have been. And like for a whole room full of people to just like not fucking do anything. Like, that's why I keep saying stuff like you need to be a valued member of the community. Like, I want my community members to believe that if this was happening to them, that I would intervene physically with my body, because I want them to intervene physically with their bodies if it happens to me. Those are the kind of relationships that you have to build, because otherwise you have a room full of people just fucking sitting there watching. And like, I do think that there should be some people who pull out their phones. Like, there should be a record that exists, and I'm glad that we have like multiple camera angles and everything, but there were more than enough people in that room who did not have their phones out, who like may have disagreed with her, but you still shouldn't get dragged out by unidentified men. Or if there was even one or two people who agreed with her, like, why didn't they physically go tackle one of these guys? That is a situation that requires like a at least proportional physical response. If they're trying to drag a woman out and they have no authority to do so, like, you should be physically taking those people out of the situation. Yeah, I know. Self-defense is so selectively applied. And this is a problem with women in general, too. Not a problem with women. A problem for women that, like, there can be a long police record of a man terrorizing a woman, threatening to kill her, and then she kills him in self-defense, and then she goes to jail for 20 years. You know what I mean? Like, there is a record of a man terrorizing a woman, and when he finally, like, makes a threat that she is scared she will die about, and she kills him in self-defense, like, the response, and then, but meanwhile, like, men literally kill their wives and don't get the same punishment as a woman who killed in self-defense, you know? Like, women have this issue where they're completely justified, and it's basically the same issue that as, like, we typically view this as a black and white issue with, like, racial lines, but it's the same problem for women. Like, in every situation, the minority who is justified in defending themselves is portrayed as the aggressor and is punished disproportionately by the law, whereas whomever is in the powerful position, whether it's the white person, whether it's the man, that person is allowed to have a certain degree of impunity on their actions. even when they are unjustified and illegal. Yeah, the number of DV victims in jail. Does crime of passion get like a less... I mean, I guess it's like... Yeah, like a premeditated crime where you really thought about it and you really had time to decide not to do it, and then you did it. Like, that is considered worse legally than something that happens because of like you're having a fight, and so it's a crime of passion. You're heated in the moment. I don't know why we treat those two differently. Like, you still made the choice and you carried through on it, unless it was like an accident. Like, I don't know. Like, you were pushing each other and one of you got like their head cracked into the concrete or something, you know? Like, I don't know. There's an old-timey word for a woman that kills her husband in that way. I can't recall what it is at the moment. Yeah, and it almost makes you feel like modern forensic science is a bad thing. Almost. Have you seen the Kindle news? No, I didn't see the Kindle news. Not familiar. Someone in the comments here says, unfortunately, the video you've shared here isn't full context. It doesn't show what led to these actions. Most of the people present were upset that the group of activists were shouting over the speaker's answers so others couldn't get or hear the answers that they wanted. And like, yeah, I mean, but that is what activists do, is they disrupt things. That's the point of activism. You're allowed to do that. Your free speech includes disrupting things. It's crazy that people seem to not understand that or not agree with it, that your free speech includes the right to interrupt people. It includes the right to interrupt even speakers with whom we have imbued authority in the room. Like, I don't know why you think that the government should arrest you for interrupting somebody. Like, why? And she didn't even get arrested because apparently what happened is that the police showed up and de-escalated. So the police showed up apparently and de-escalated the situation after she was removed by, again, these guys who are just fucking random people. Just random people laid hands on this woman, assaulted her, carried her out of the room against her will. And I'm not hearing anything about charges for those men. You can't download Kindle ebooks to PC anymore, effectively stripping away, admittedly, the already flimsy ownership premise. Oh, okay. Like, the idea that you're supposed to own a copy of it and you're supposed to be able to, like, be in... I mean, yeah. It's weird, this whole concept of owning a copy of something. In the video game age, we now are starting to have it portrayed as, like, you have purchased a license to use the product, but that is not the same as owning a copy of it. I don't know. It's so weird. But that's why physical media is so important. That's why I buy books. When I want a book, I buy it. Or, like, you know, if I'm checking a book out and I'm not sure whether I want it, obviously, like, the library is the way to go. But... like, buy your books, buy DVDs or Blu-rays. If you want stuff, you gotta try to get a physical copy of it. They also forced me to rebuy music that I'm sure I'd already paid for. Yeah. Interestingly, when I'm on the Prime Video app, like, trying to pull up one of the movies that I've purchased, like, I've purchased, like, a couple of the Marvel movies, and I was like, okay, I want to watch these. Now I finally bought Disney Plus, but I had bought them on Amazon Prime. So I was like on the Prime Video app, and if you just like type in the search bar for the movie that you want to watch, it takes you to a page that like basically prompts you to buy it again. And I'm like, no, I bought it. and it only shows me like the play button if I navigate specifically to the like my purchases part of the thing, which is like hidden and kind of weird to get to. I don't know why it isn't more prominent. Um, and then it'll be in there, and then I click it from there and it will allow me to play it. But I'm like, why does your default app, like your default app navigation, and I click the thing that I want to watch and it doesn't say like, you've already purchased this, would you like to watch it? Like there is no option for that. It's only like, here, you know, do you want to rent it or do you want to buy it? Like, I already bought it. So I'm sure that there's somebody out there who's spent money on it more than once, or like maybe if you click on it and you already buy it, it tells you. I don't know, but I just think that's very shit. Even, and a lot of times a used hard copy of a book is cheaper than Kindle anyway. Keep your used and indie bookstores in business. That's true. Yeah. There are a couple of used bookstores that I want to go to sometime. Don't worry, OnlyFans will become a music app. Man, I haven't been taking pictures on OnlyFans because I weigh more than I've ever weighed before, and I'm like, man, I'm not really feeling very sexy. Maybe I should try to be sexy anyway. I don't know. It's just, I just haven't been really feeling it for a while. But it's like I shouldn't like not allow myself to dress sexy just because I need to lose weight according to my own standard. I don't know. Like, am I not allowed to dress sexy until I attain like some mystical weight that I was at before? Oh yeah, Fansly. I mean Fansly, yeah. They're the same thing in my brain. OnlyFans and Fansly is basically the same thing. Where else can you get a week of entertainment from if not a used bookstore for 69 cents? True. But it would be funny if OnlyFans became a music app. I don't know, music apps don't do very well. That's like, wasn't TikTok originally a music app? And Vine? Maybe Vine wasn't a music app because it was always the 6-second videos. Noah says, I'm already too sexy. I need to calm down. Calm down. Chill out. Musically? Is that what TikTok was before it had a rebrand? Oh my gosh. My face is twitching. Sexy conservationist is a category more popular than Bear Grylls, let's be honest. Sexy conservationist. That's funny. Excuse me. I think I want to take a little bathroom break. And then when I get back, I want to react to this Rebecca Watson video and kind of talk about this subject a little bit. Like, as a leftist, will we welcome people who are regretful about their Trump votes to the resistance? It's kind of the premise of this question. So, Sexy Librarian still wins. I think Sexy Librarian is pretty good. I do think that my glasses kind of lend toward a Sexy Librarian kind of mood, but my glasses are dirty as hell because I don't clean them. And also they squeeze my head a little bit, so I don't wear them that much. Probably not as much as I should. When my partner has income again, I will get a new pair of glasses this year at some point. MySpace is a place for music and musicians. Is MySpace still around? I don't know if I believe you. Anyway, I'm just going to leave this up here and go to the bathroom, and I'll be back in a minute. Hello. I'm back. Okay, so I'm gonna eat some pistachios while this video plays. I'm gonna put on my headphones. Where am I? What am I doing? Headphones. They're over here. Okay, we're gonna listen to what Rebecca has to say.
Before on here, I'm on Blue Sky, and overall, I really like it. You know, there's a friendly interface, there are effective tools for curating your feed or blocking or muting people, and most of the people I like to follow on Shitter are now active on Blue Sky. But one issue I have with it, I think, is related to the fact that most of the people there are there because they left Shitter. And they left Shitter specifically because it's been overwhelmed with Nazis. And so people on Blue Sky really want to be nice. Like, it's not enough to just not be a Nazi or.
This is so true. People on Blue Sky are like, I will block you even if you are completely aligned with me politically, if you are even remotely annoying in the comments. Like, people really do prioritize being chill. Having normal interactions instead of these rage bait type of interactions. Like, if you don't have a good faith, calm response, then people are just like, no, I don't want to be around you, which I respect.
Or not throw around racial slurs. But in order to differentiate the new place from the old place, a lot of people really want the new place to be as nice as humanly possible. And they are kind of annoying about it, about policing the behavior of others. For instance, at first there was a big push to make sure that everybody blocked every right-winger as soon as they signed up for an account. Like, even before they make a post, block them, send the message they're not welcome here. Okay, fine, I'll do that. Then there was this new rule that you can never quote dunk on anyone because quoting a.
I actually also agree with this social conscription that you shouldn't quote dunk people. I really don't like it, but I also really didn't like it even on Twitter. Like, I think quote dunking is bad, that you shouldn't do it, because I think all it does is make the website shitty. Like, you know, if you're going to disagree with someone back and forth in the comments, that's fine. Or if you maybe like occasionally say like, okay, so as an example, this is the kind of interaction that I think is important to talk about. Like, okay, if you're doing some kind of deconstruction of the interaction, that's whatever. But I think just quote dunking on people is really shitty social interactions. But I know that Rebecca is kind of like, she likes dunking on people, but I just don't think it's a good social environment to be in.
A person's bad idea and then, including your reply to it so that everybody can see you making fun of their bad idea. That's bad because it just spreads that person's bad idea. And I have mixed feelings on that because.
Yeah, I wouldn't make the argument that you're just spreading that person's bad idea. I just think it's a bad culture to be like quote dunking on people. I'm mostly just like, even in the replies, I enjoy that Blue Sky has this environment where even in the replies, you don't want to get into this kind of argument with people. You try to have like a fruitful discussion and not just sniping at each other, because the sniping at each other thing is not leading us anywhere productive. So I don't know. That's my opinion on it anyway. Sorry that I'm like, I have stuff in my teeth and I'm like chewing while I'm trying to talk.
I enjoy seeing idiots get dunked on and I enjoy dunking on idiots, but okay, if this new
Just
platform
doesn't
else. Like that, I won't do it. Okay, let's be realistic. I will do it a little less than usual. You know, we compromise. But in the past few weeks, I've noticed a new form of behavior policing. Every week or so, there's this new viral post explaining why we must accept the MAGA Republicans who are now suffering because of their own actions. Instead of admonishing them, we need to accept them. For instance, here's a person stating, "Friendly reminder that the best case scenario over the coming years is that a lot of people say, I supported Trump, but this isn't what I wanted at all. And when they do do that, it's going to be really, really important that we say, welcome in, not fuck you, we told you so. And then this week I saw this post. If you see someone who voted for Trump and is now facing unexpected consequences, I encourage you to sympathize with them and tell them that they were misled and lied to. This is an opportunity to recruit people against Trump that has value and is useful. And
Also, what a sociopath using light mode. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I love Rebecca. No shame on Rebecca. No shade on Rebecca. She's cool. I'm just like, what that is an arbitrary thing to make fun of somebody too for. Like, what a sociopath using light mode. Can't believe you.
antagonizing them is not helpful. And okay, I'm sorry, this is where I gotta draw the line. Not only will I not be doing that, but every time I see another post on Blue Sky telling me to be nice to a Trump voter, I'm going to go out of my way to be mean to a Trump voter. I'm going to push a Cybertruck into the...
Like I said, I know Rebecca. This is her jam. Like, she is aggressive and shitposty. And yeah, she is like, no, if you're stupid, I will make fun of you for being stupid. And like, some people just don't vibe with that, and I respect that. But I'm just saying, like, I understand that this is where Rebecca's coming from. That's a character trait of hers that I'm familiar with.
The mud, rendering it completely useless. I'm going to
Yeah, you can't throw shade at someone who uses light mode because it's too bright.
Spit on someone's well-done steak with ketchup on it. I'm not going to pick up my dog's shit from the yard that's flying a Confederate flag, etc. Okay, I kid, but also I'm not kidding, because here's the thing, you guys. I've been accidentally reading a lot about Nazis recently. Mm-hmm. I don't mean the current Nazis running the United States government. I mean the original Nazis 80 years ago. Recently, I've been randomly choosing books and movies and things without knowing anything about what they're about. And inevitably, they end up being about
so
Nazis.
I
swear
funny.
to God, it was happening so often that just so to make sure I could take a break from Nazi stuff, I grabbed a random detective novel, and this was its opening page. The book was 5 Decembers, by the way. It was really entertaining. I actually do recommend it. Besides that detective novel, though, I've noticed that several of the books and movies that I've been experiencing share a similar theme. The idea that the Nazis were not evil. Admittedly, I said that in a purposely unsettling way, so let me explain. Martin Amos's Time's Arrow, Anthony Doerr's All the Light We Cannot See, and the film Zone of Interest, which I later learned was adapted from a book by Martin Amos, all explicitly push back on the modern myth that Nazis were this grand, inevitable, overwhelming monster evil that could be cut out of humanity with something as simple as a war. And of course, as Alexander Solzhenitsyn once wrote, if only there were evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and if it were necessary, only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being, and who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart? When it came down to it, the Holocaust happened not simply because of a handful of power-mad, sociopathic bigots, all of whom were justly punished at the end of the war. The Third Reich's power came from the will of the people, who either actively supported it and joined in, or else remained silent and just hoped to muddle through. You may think that this humanization of the average German Nazi sympathizer would lead me to embrace the idea that here, today, in Nazi America, it is in fact incumbent upon us all to embrace MAGA voters who now regret their choices, so that we can gain a supportive majority and stop this monster before more lives are ruined. Because, of course, the people who voted for Donald Trump last November are not evil. They are our family members and our neighbors. They have their good qualities and their bad qualities. Sure, some openly embrace the proud Nazis in the new administration, like Elon Musk and his Shitler youth in Doge, but other voters just weren't paying attention. Some just liked the anti-immigrant rhetoric or the anti-trans rhetoric, or they really, for some reason, thought that we needed Trump to bring down the cost of eggs. Like, yes, Trump and his fellow Republicans were very, very clear that they were going to cause this destruction, that they are fascists who want nothing more than to get rich and hold on to power at all costs. But outlets like Fox News provided them a lot of cover, pretending Project 2025 was just a big lie. Even CNN and the New York.
Yeah, so I kind of see what the point she's driving toward here is basically that, like, you can't just, like, say that the average person didn't know because they had the access to the knowledge the entire time, right? But I guess you could say, like, Rebecca, I guess, is maybe she shares the fundamental trait that I do, which is that we do want to find out, or maybe it's in my, I don't even know if it's a fundamental trait, or if it's rather that at some point we were taught the process of seeking truth via, like, rigorous study and repetition, you know, like, but whatever. She and I now share the trait, whether it's irrevocable or not, that's like, I'm gonna double check and I'm gonna make sure that I understand what this person represents, and, like, if I hear about, oh, Project 2025, I'm going to read about it. Like, why did we see more Google searches for Project 2025 after the election than we did before? Well, it's at least partially because people don't have that skill of going out of their way to learn about the candidate, you know? They don't know that the mainstream media is omitting information on purpose, you know? And like, I don't know how much you can fault Republicans for this, because like, you know, liberals and Democrats are just as bad in the way that, like, you know, a bunch of liberals are out there not wearing masks because they believe that if there was a problem, the news would tell them, you know? So it's like, not only do they not have the fundamental skill of looking for the information, but they also, you know, they're susceptible to all the things that make it so that you don't want to seek that information out. And then everybody also has an algorithm on their social media that is selectively showing you things, and these people just don't have the critical thinking skills to go beyond that, or to double check or whatever. So it's like, I can see the lack of sympathy. Like, I understand the lack of sympathy for those people, because, yeah, you're stupid and you're hateful and you're ignorant, basically, is like how we feel about it on a reflexive emotional level. Which, you know, I won't say is outright wrong. It's definitely correct that these people are ignorant. You know, whether we want to go further and say that they're, like, stupid or hateful or they're bigoted or what have you, at the very minimum, they are ignorant, and they're being presented with false information, again, by people who have learned the language of presenting information as though it is correct in a secular way, of, like, yeah, we've learned the language of citing studies, we've learned the language of statistics, which is not to say that any of the things that they're saying are correct, but rather that they've learned how to manipulate information. Thank you, Inabox, for the $20 dono. I'm gonna watch the stream tomorrow. Certainly hope I'm not donoing at an awkward time. Nah, it's okay. It's never an awkward time. Thank you very much. At some point, it's willful. I mean, I guess it's not, like, is it willful or are they just stupid? Like, but do we give the benefit of the doubt to people just because they're stupid? Like, I don't know. I do wonder sometimes, like, I understand that democracy is an ideal that many of us aspired for, you know? Like, but is it actually maybe a bad thing sometimes for an uninformed public to be making these calls for all people? It's like Brexit, you know? Let's just completely get out of the United States and just focus on, you know, fucking Brexit. It's a lot of people were regretful afterwards because they were not informed about what leaving the European Union would comprise. Like, that it involves losing the ability to freely travel with your UK passport, you know, between all these countries, or even maybe it's that you don't even need a passport. I don't know. It's also much more normal for people in the UK to have a passport than for people in the United States. I think, like, statistically, more people in the UK have a passport. But, that you're losing access to like the European Union, the ability. Oh, it's that you could freely work and live anywhere in the European Union, even if you only had documentation for your home country. That's the thing. So like people just didn't know, right? And many people said after Brexit, oh, if I had known that this is what would happen, then I would have voted differently. To the point where many people were demanding a second referendum. And how this is where democracy has its faults, is that it's ultimately not a competition of truths, it's a competition of like charisma and how to say the right buzzwords. And yes, there is overt and outright lying that happens, but even without that, it's a game of obfuscation that does not seem to result in maximized human good, despite the fact that anyone and everyone is invited to participate in the decision-making process. It's like somehow a huge portion of people are participating in the democratic process, and yet things are still bad for most people. So clearly there's like a problem. I'm not saying I don't know exactly what the problem is or like how to fix it, but I'm just saying that like I think every political system has its faults. And you start to really see it when it would be nice to at least try an actual democracy instead of representative republic. I mean, I guess, yeah, it would be interesting to see what happened at least in a more pure democracy. But I think ultimately the problem is that all of these different political systems are messed up by the underlying economic system, that like no matter how you try to govern people, if there's people with a lot of money, they're going to try to influence things to benefit them, including by like purchasing advertising space to lie to people to influence their votes, right? It's the money that makes the problems in that kind of capacity. So like I don't know, would any government system be fine without capitalism? I don't know. Jay says, I think it's important to remember that stupidity and selfishness aren't any more set in stone than compassion and learnedness. We were not raised in an environment that values compassion and intelligence. That's true. The problem is that most people are centrists, maybe, and on autopilot. The problem is that most people are so overwhelmingly consumed by their immediate material needs that they aren't capable of taking the time to research. Like, I think that is the problem for most people. Now, I won't say that every Republican is in that situation, because, like, I have retired family members. I'm like, you guys are retired. You could take the time to Google fucking Project 2025 and read about it, or watch a video about it. But, yeah, I think most people are just, yeah, like, so preoccupied by getting food on the table and wanting to hang out with the boys and getting the kids to school and getting to work on time and everything, that like most people simply do not have the energy or capacity to look any further into this. And that's why we have so many non-voters too, is that there are plenty of people who recognize that they don't know enough about this to participate. And that's why they don't, because they don't take the time to educate themselves, and they're like, whatever, I don't even want to deal with this. I have other shit that I'm thinking about right now. This is why Meat Space needs a gold cap. Fucking true. Junebug says, I have tried being convincing with theoretically smart people like engineers and medical personnel, and if they wanted to learn, they definitely could. People who are educated in a field like medicine or engineering are not smart people. They are good at repeating things and memorizing things. That does not make them smart. And I know that that's probably going to be a really spicy thing to say, But like, just because you're capable of memorizing what's in a medical textbook does not make you smart. That's why so many doctors don't wear a mask right now, because they do not know how to critically think or make decisions for themselves. They don't know. This is also why so many doctors are incompetent at caring for even moderately complex medical cases. Why so many people are like, yeah, I got bounced around from doctor to doctor for 10 years before I finally got a diagnosis. And if my first doctor had just listened to my concerns, we could have figured this out back then. Like, this tells me that doctors are not smart, you know? So it's just a thing that you need to like learn and memorize stuff. It doesn't actually require you to think very much. It's a very basic, like, medicine is a very basic pattern matching kind of job, basically. Yeah. Liam says, as an engineer can confirm, there is so much lack of empathy and even critical thinking at my workplace, with few exceptions. I knew a lawyer that would read KKK propaganda in his spare time. Yeah, so even like a lawyer, yes, education does not equal compassionate or smart. Exactly. Oh, I can agree with that, Junebug. Junebug says, I view this as kind of an ego problem. If your ego is wrapped up in being smart, you act remarkably stupid. I mean, I think it's because there's this idea that becoming a physician, and I'm making the distinction in this moment between doctor and physician. Becoming a physician does not require you to be smart, but we've set it up in our society that being a physician is something that is like smart people do it, or that attaining this means that you are a smart person. But like, that's a societal problem with viewing physicians as smart people, and that might even be part of like the problem with the term doctor breaking down, because like the doctor is a doctorate, like a PhD, like someone who has made an original contribution to their field. That's what a PhD is. So like someone with a doctorate probably is smart, because they have had to come up with, like, they had to create their own experiment, or they had to look over the data in a new way that showed a different pattern that we hadn't established previously or something, or had to do the research and compile the data themselves. So like someone with a doctorate, I think we could easily say that anyone who has doctor in their name in that official capacity is probably smart, right? But physicians, most of the time, are not literally doctors in that same way. They just graduated from medical school, you know? So I think that maybe it's that the concept of a doctor has gotten muddled a little bit. Like, a physician is just a guy who memorized the body systems and how they can get weird. That's it. We have a weirdly idealized value on intelligence, but no understanding of what intelligence actually is. Yeah, I guess, yeah, part of the problem is that we all have an independent, like, definition of what being intelligent is. Because someone might say, like, well, being able to memorize all these different things is intelligence. And I'm like, like, I like, yeah, memorization is one metric of, like, your brain doing the things it's supposed to do. Also, somebody who's really good at pattern recognition, like, cool, that's me, like, I guess your brain is, like, doing a thing that it's supposed to be able to do really well. But, like, I feel like intelligence is being able to take data and, like, reinterpret it. My doctor has a doctorate in doctoring. I call her Doctor. Do you really? Junebug says, I've been thoroughly convinced, dealing with clients and people in general, that humility, in the sense of being able to let your ego go, is essential to learning and intelligence. I can agree with that. Yeah, because, what pursuit of truth are you going to be able to do if you are not able to recognize when you have been incorrect in the past, you know? Okay, I realized that I just stopped this video and have been talking for a while. So let's get back in here.
York Times and NPR and the Young Turks failed to adequately convey the simple facts to the majority of American voters. And so, in a way, many of them were tricked, like tricking a baby to think you've disappeared by hiding your face behind your hands. But yeah, tricked all the same. This isn't new. Powerful people have been convincing the poor and oppressed to fight amongst themselves for decades, centuries, millennia. It's practically a feature built into human society. Keep the poor white man voting against his own interests by convincing him that if he doesn't, the poor black man is going to steal whatever he has left. So, yeah, a lot of Trump voters were victims of an elaborate
I
scheme.
love the little puffball on her microphone. I could get a cool one. Oh, she's not on screen. Sorry. Speaking as a guy getting a PhD in physics, the thing all the smart billionaires swear they could have done, smarts are learned. Most people are capable of earning a PhD given the opportunity and proper guidance. Fair enough. Yeah, like I guess that is like you're pushing back on this idea that like intelligence. Yeah, I don't think that like intelligence is something you're necessarily like either born with or not. But like critical thinking is not being taught to people, and it's also a thing that for some reason people are really resistant to learning in their adulthood. It's so strange. Critically thinking, Nuvenal says, is actually a question of emotional intelligence, being willing to engage with contradictory information without seeing it as an attack and then shutting down. Yeah, I could see that. It's like a factor of emotional intelligence. Like you have to be able to separate yourself and your ego from your beliefs in order to have your beliefs interrogated without feeling like you yourself are being interrogated. And I think that that's largely the problem that we experience when we're trying to speak with religious person, like whether you're whether you're actively trying to deconvert them or not. The problem is that people are so personally identified with their faith, and they're like, I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and stuff, that if you start questioning that, it's pulling away at the threads of who they feel they are as a being. And so it's like almost impossible to have those conversations without those people becoming extremely emotionally defensive. So yeah, I think I can agree that being able to question your own beliefs and stuff is partially a matter of like, am I emotionally intelligent enough to be able to separate my beliefs from my core self? And like I think for some people and for some beliefs, it is part of your core self, and you would experience like a kind of grief by losing it. Yeah, but it's just a matter of like, I guess we all have to decide which beliefs are appropriate for that. Like, and even so, my beliefs and values have changed over the last couple of years in ways that I often was not expecting. Like, I did not expect to become a person who's like, I think hunting animals is good for the ecosystem, but that's because I'm responsive to new information. And like, you have to hunt or you will end up with populations out of control that will harm the ecosystem eventually, you know? So, but it's, you have to be open to change of yourself on a fundamental level in order to be willing to change your beliefs and like to accept in yourself that you believe differently. And I think that that keeps so many people in even in like toxic patterns that are harmful to people around us. Like if you grew up believing that the way to discipline your children is by like physically hitting them, if you become a parent and you start using that way of parenting, and then you start to feel bad about yourself because you don't like harming a child, you might have a period of time where you double down on the behavior because it's so difficult to face that your values have changed and that you believe something is wrong that you used to believe was right, and to acknowledge that you are doing something wrong and that you need to stop, I think is too painful for most people to deal with. You learn language quickest as a young child. It's still possible as an adult. It just takes more effort and practice. Reduced neuroplasticity is not a lack of plasticity. That's a great point, Jay. Suspension of judgment to entertain an argument is a foundation of philosophy that is almost never taught below a college level. Right. Imagine if we taught like some basic philosophy. This is what English classes are for. Like, this is why you take English class in high school. It's supposed to be an opportunity to entertain philosophies and like talk about right and wrong and is this character like justified and stuff. Like, that is the opportunity in high school to talk about these things. That's why we need to keep funding the fucking arts. Excuse me. Junebug says, I feel that authoritarian and emotionally abusive parenting makes people fear being wrong a little too much. Or at least that's what it's supposed to be for. Yeah, maybe. Yes, and being able to forgive yourself for for having an emotional and moral growth. Like, to be like, yes, I did wrong before and I harmed people and now I'm going to do differently. And like, yes, I want to make restitution for those bad things, but I don't need to be holding myself responsible for them because I simply did not know better. But also, like, I did do material harm. So like, materially fixing that to the degree that is possible, or at least putting more good energy out in the world than you did negative energy before. Yeah, it all requires like a level of emotional intelligence that probably is difficult to obtain. Yeah, you would think the humanities would be a little bit more valued in human culture. My English class made us watch movies. I mean, sometimes movies are good and like you can analyze movies in a literature class because it's a type of text, but yeah. You also need to be willing to change and forgive even if others don't forgive you. That's true too. Yeah. Going like, yeah, because you have to make the internal change for yourself, not in the hopes of getting some kind of external validation and, reward for not believing harmful things or not doing harmful things. I do think that we should give credit to people when they have tried to change things. Like, there was a guy who had called in to Transatlantic Call-In Show this past week who he was like, so I admit, like, I used to be transphobic overtly, and now I'm trying to get away from that. Like, I'm trying to question those beliefs and stuff. And I always try to say to those people, like, I want to recognize the progress that you've made and, like, the fact that this is work that you're having to do to unlearn these things. Like, you are working hard, and it obviously, like, I agree with the path that you're on. Yeah, so just trying to... I know that, you shouldn't, like, give cookies to your abuser for changing their ways or whatever, especially if they don't apologize to you specifically. But, like, as I can just say, like, as a person who was not directly harmed by that person's transphobia, like, I appreciate that you're working hard to unlearn those things, even if that does not necessarily undo any of the harm that you have done previously. It's been 2,000 years. Christians still don't forgive each other for original sin. Let's be honest. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Still holding each other responsible. OMG, why did I never think to just play audiobooks in the crappy teaching jobs I've had? What, like, rather than making the kids read themselves, or rather than what the kids reading out loud? I think that those are still good skills for kids to have. Okay, anyway, what does Rebecca have to say?
Scam. But here's the thing. I've been studying scams for several decades now, and one of the most obvious ways to know if someone is going to get scammed is knowing that they already got scammed before. Because even if a person realizes they've been scammed, they may not know why they fell for a scam, and so they haven't fixed the root problem that allowed them to be scammed. Like,
okay, that's true.
Are they horribly lonely? Are they lazy but want to get rich quick? Do they hate some particular race, gender, or other characteristic about their fellow humans? Do they think about their fellow humans as actually being subhuman in some way? When that trait remains, it makes it pretty easy to scam you a second time. Personally, I have yet to see a groundswell of Trump voters expressing anguish and regret because random people who may or may not have committed any crime are being shipped to a concentration camp in Guantanamo,
Yeah.
or that trans kids are no longer able to access medical care, or that women can no longer access medical care. No, the very few who are upset at extremely specific ways in which they themselves have been directed.
My son was hired in NASA in 2024. He's worked hard to get his master's degree. He obtained top security clearance. He interviewed with NASA. After several interviews, he took a position. He was not a DEI hire. He got the job based on his intelligence and work ethic. Now, through no fault of his own, he's going to be fired / let go. I thought we were going to base priorities on merit. I have voted for Trump 3 times now and feel very dejected. I am a Republican and left my home state of Illinois to be down here. Governor Ron DeSantis, so this is in Florida? Yeah. I specifically moved to Florida because I liked how racist you guys are.
Directly hurt. They lost their federal job, or their spouse was deported, or the price of eggs is still too high. These are not and never will be reasons to ally with someone because they haven't learned any lesson. They have not developed empathy.
True.
They still support Donald Trump hurting people other than themselves. After the conclusion of World War II, historians
That's a really good point. Like, yeah. In order to build coalition with these people, you would need to have some kind of expectation that these people want good for you, but they only want good for themselves. That's the issue. They only care about having good things for themselves. And when life gets worse for them, then they get upset. But like, yeah, can you build coalition with people who are like, I like that trans people are being harmed by this? You can't really.
Noted that there was an initial plan of denazification, but that plan was eventually abandoned in favor of a more gentle democratization, with former Nazis allowed to come back into society and even retake high-ranking jobs.
Jesus Christ.
More than half of those employed with West Germany's Federal Ministry of Justice were Nazis.
Wow.
Even high-ranking Nazis who had passed death sentences during the war were forgiven and allowed to move on with their lives as though nothing happened. And the prevailing mood up until the Cold War was that the German people were, in fact, victims. For instance, Hannah Arendt noted that when chatting with a German Gentile after the war and referencing her own Judaism, the response that she normally got is not a personal question such as, where did you go after you left Germany? No sign of sympathy such as, what happened to your family? But a deluge of stories about how Germans have suffered, true enough, of course, but beside the point. And if the object of this little experiment happens to be educated and intelligent, he will proceed to draw up a balance between German suffering and the suffering of others, the implication being that one side cancels the other and we may as well proceed to a more promising topic of conversation. Similarly evasive is the standard reaction to the ruins. When there is any overt reaction at all, it consists of a sigh, followed by the half-rhetorical, half-wistful question, why must mankind always wage wars? The average German looks for the causes of the last war not in the acts of the Nazi regime, but in the events that led to the expulsion of Adam and Eve from paradise.
Wow.
In his book, Aftermath, Life in the Fallout of the Third Reich.
That's incredible. Like, people start esoterizing to the nature of man rather than looking at the specific actions being done. Man. That's poignant.
Like 1945 to 1955, journalist Harold Yonner details the extent of German victimization. He discusses how prevalent the sentiment was that Germans had been duped by Hitler, as if evil had become a virus and it's not your fault if you catch it. Thus, Nazis who committed atrocities were free to live their lives in peace, at times even returning out of hiding and retaking their real names and old positions. The anti-Semitism, the nationalism, the bigotry, all of that still remained inside of them and therefore wormed its way through the new, more democratic society where many Jews still had good reason to feel unsafe. For instance, he describes the Kielce pogrom of 1946, when 42 Jewish refugees returning from the concentration camps were massacred because of blood libel, and the survivors were actually forced to flee back to Germany, where they experienced virulent anti-Semitism for not fitting in. And thinking about all this, I just wonder, is that what we want? Do we want to defeat Donald Trump, stop his fascist administration, but then allow all of the bigots who supported him to claim victimhood and then move on with no further introspection? Like, yeah, you know, a lot of immigrants were deported, families destroyed, lives ruined. But we suffered too. We were victims of this great scam too. Like, do you want Elon Musk's little Nazis to end up in Congress because they say they were just doing as they were told? They were duped too. And to use an example that I'm sure people have in their heads when they post these Pollyanna screeds on social media, do you really want to join forces with someone who was and still is okay with the deportations, with the trans erasure, with the destruction of women's bodily autonomy? But they now agree that Donald Trump is bad because the price of eggs didn't come down. Because I don't want to be that person's ally. This isn't about ideological purity. You know, I can agree to disagree with someone on whether or not we should build more high-speed rail or how much to tax the 1% or whether property tax should be tied to inflation, but not about the right of people to exist, not about whether someone should be thrown in a camp for people with mental illnesses, not about that real Nazi shit. I'll mention that Yonner doesn't actually seem to agree with me on this. In Aftermath, he argues that allowing Nazis and Nazi sympathizers to fade back into society was a necessary prerequisite to Germany being rebuilt as a democracy, a paradox that a New York Times reviewer labeled infuriating yet hard to dismiss. I'll admit, I'm no
New York Times. Please stop citing the fucking New York Times, Rebecca. Come on.
professional historian. I'm just a girl who accidentally picks up and reads way too much stuff about the Nazis. But I do have to wonder if we can dismiss that, if it was in fact a necessary prerequisite to moving on. It's honestly, it's an open question to me. When so many people are aligned on an evil purpose, is humanity's only option to allow them to forgive themselves or reframe themselves as the true victims with no accountability, no fundamental change in their own philosophy or worldview? Can we not expect more of people?
So I do want to say something that, one of the things that I enjoyed about Captain America: The First Avenger is the conversation that he has with the Doctor, played by Stanley Tucci, where he's like, hey, something that people don't really think about with regards to the, Nazi regime is that the first country that they invaded was their own. And I think that maybe that probably fits into this broader picture that she's trying to say. A lot of media that talks about Nazis tends to do some work to absolve German citizens, particularly German citizens who supported the regime, I think. Because, I do want to draw a distinction between those two things, between, there are people who either gleefully participated in the destruction of their country, and all the hateful things that were going on. There will be people who passively went along with it, and there will be people who explicitly didn't agree. And there will be people who explicitly didn't agree and were jailed for it. There will be people who explicitly disagreed and chose to keep their heads down or be part of networks to help smuggle people out of the country or hide people or whatever. And I do think that there is merit to the concept that not every person in the country was a bad person, and that, yes, you do, like the citizens of of a Nazi country are victims, and potentially even we could say that like the ones who have been brainwashed into doing hateful things were victims because they were brainwashed into doing hateful things, but that's not what I'm going to refer to here, but rather that there are like good people who just like don't really think that hard about it. They learn the stuff from the textbook and then they go do their job, which most of the time is not like directly to do with a war effort, you know? But even so, like if you do quality control for Boeing, if you're like, I want to try to make it a better place and I'm going to make sure that everything that I inspect as the inspector is perfect. And so no planes are going to fall on my watch. But the company that makes things for Boeing is also manufacturing for like, I mean, doesn't Boeing actually have a piece of some of this like warplanes bullshit and like missiles and stuff like that? So, you know, you're trying to work in a field that has nothing to fucking do with the war effort, and it still tangentially does. Or maybe you don't, you know? But regardless, I do think that there is some merit to the idea that the citizens of a country can be victims, but like, do we think that people who voted for Trump can be victims in the sense that like, okay, let's focus on how hard they have things, where like if they were able to look the other way on these other atrocities, they are perpetrators who just happen to not be close enough to the in-group to get all of the benefits of being in the in-group, I think is kind of the argument that Rebecca is driving toward. Nuvenal says, this is like when Lincoln, that coward, let the southern states back into the Union with something like 10% approval / fealty from the populace of each state, rather than the 50% the quote radical front of his party wanted. Oh, so basically, like, I'm gathering that there was a question of whether to let the states back into the Union, and that they wanted there to be a high number of people within those states who agreed with joining. But if only 10% agreed with rejoining, then you're kind of just folding a hostile territory back into yourself. Is that what happened with Lincoln? Like, no wonder we've had so much difficulty. I'm not saying that it would have been a good thing for us to become two separate countries at that time. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I think we would have been at war much more often, like in a domestic sense. Trump's Republican approval fell to 45% this week. They are turning against Trump. Yeah. So, like, I'm glad that that's happening, but the question is, like, yeah, they're against Trump, but are they going to support the next fascist that comes in? They probably will, if that fascist manages to convince them that they will actually do things for their benefit. House divided against itself be damned, I guess. I'm having some weird, like, kind of sharp low back pain today. I woke up with, like, more achy low back pain the last couple days, but today it's a little bit more intense, so I'm kind of trying to like move with it a little bit, trying to get some blood flow. Maybe it'll help a little bit. Oh gosh, I don't think any diehard MAGA person is a victim other than having bad parents. Fair enough. All right, what are closing thoughts?
Or do we just have to treat bigots as venomous snakes who, once their political power is destroyed, have been defanged? So who cares if there's still a bunch of snakes slithering around your house? They can't hurt you anymore, at least for 80 years or so, after which their fangs grow back and they launch another genocide.
True.
Sorry, that metaphor was cruel to snakes. Some species can grow back their teeth, but as far as I know, no species do genocides. Like the Nazis. Even if that book is right, that the general amnesty for the Nazis was necessary to rebuild German democracy, I'd rather try something new for the new Nazis. Honestly, I don't think that a substantial number of Trump voters are going to switch sides and make a difference in the current fight right now. That fight is being led by progressives and our remaining bureaucrats, lawyers, and judges who still have spines. I don't think we're going to push this movement over the edge this year because some doofus on TikTok just noticed that a check they get every month comes from the government and it isn't showing up anymore. But even so, fuck that doofus, because it's too late. He voted for Trump, and now we're stuck with him for another 4 years or until he dies, at which point things might get worse. And when it comes to the next election, that doofus is going to fall for the same scam again. Some politician who will trick him into voting against his own Social Security check because he hasn't done the work and fixed the problem in his own heart. The bigotry, the fear, the loneliness. Being warmly welcomed into the never Trump camp isn't going to fix that. He has to do it. As a society, yeah, we can help that. You know, we can prioritize teaching better critical thinking skills to kids at an earlier age. We can prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion in society. We can prioritize libraries and higher education. We can make sure that everyone has access to food and housing and healthcare. But we're not going to be doing that in the next 4 years. Those things are all getting worse. So, in the meantime, can we please just shun the Nazis? Or, at the very least, you go teach the Nazis and stop lecturing me because I choose to shun them.
Puppy time. Man.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching.
If I made serious videos still, I would need to end every serious video with a little bit of cat footage. Anyway, I just thought it would be interesting to react to that video because we are now seeing, yeah, a lot of, maybe not a lot, but a certain amount of right-wing regret. Like I said, you know, I have some retired family members who probably voted for Trump, and I'm kind of curious if their Social Security is going to freeze. Because then it's like, oh, how do we buy things? Like, I think the house is paid for, so there's not like a mortgage payment, but there will be like electrical bills, there will be internet and cable bills, and it's like, I don't know what's going to happen to my older family members who might not have like very much savings at this point. Yeah, and if they're prejudiced against me, they aren't going to listen to me anyway. True. That, you know, that's true. That's part of why I don't mind occupying a social space where most people probably perceive me as cis, because I would rather have the opportunity to challenge those things. And then, like, if I want to reveal that I'm trans and be like, look, you think I'm a decent person, you listen to me, I'm trans. So what about me, like, what about me changes now that you know that about me, right? But I do have the option to just be like, why are you bitching about trans people? Like, they didn't do anything to you. You know? Trump dying would be worse because JD Vance isn't stupid as shit. I don't know. JD Vance does seem pretty stupid to me, but again, how do we define intelligence? Is like alienating all of Europe right in front of their faces smart? I don't know. Because if you didn't hear, JD Vance recently visited, I think, Germany, and like made a point to say hello to the leader of the far-right party in Germany, the like Nazi party in Germany, and all of the rest of Europe is like, oh, so America might be ready to fuck us over. We need to start redrawing the boundary lines, and like anything that we currently rely on the US for, we need to start finding a different way to fill those needs. Someone said, is it kidneys? No, I don't think so. It's way, way down, like right above my ass where my back hurts. So I think kidneys are like more near your rib cage. Kitty says, JD Vance is a con man just like Trump. They are cut from the same piece of cloth, and his investments from his book money proves it. Oh, okay. I feel like Legal Eagle's channel has got to be like popping off right now. He's just like, he got a video from 2 days ago called What the Fuck is Doge? Mm. Excuse me. He's snoring right now, you guys. I'm I almost wish that I had my microphone on like a stand. Excuse me, a stand instead of on the arm, because then I could reach down and let you hear him snoring. Are you snoring? It's funny because he's snoring, but his eyes are still kind of open. Or at least the one eye that I can see is still kind of open. Hey, baby. No, he's fucking dead asleep right now. But he's just got one of his... You know when cats, like, they lay down, but the skin of their forehead is just, like, pulling their eye open? We got one of those. If we get, like, $55 more in donations today, I will wake him up and make him be on camera. Should I get more floating shelves so that I have somewhere to put the box, or at least a box? Ha ha ha, that's funny, Nuvino. Oh gosh. Man, I'm so glad that I don't really spend much time on Twitter anymore, but I need to come on Twitter more often so that I see Claremax, so that I have the motivation. Because I'm like, man, all of my get buff motivation is just gone right now. But it's like, man, I do have some natural amount of buffness that I just need to work on. I will say yes to more shelves with neat shit in general. Always more shelves. I mean, but it's gonna be behind me most of the time. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what to do with this space that is largely gonna be hidden by my body most of the time. Only if the shelves actually float. Yeah, I know. Wouldn't that be the dream? Gotta start. Man, maybe that's what I need to do on my Fansly, is just post getting buff content. I found out a few days ago that I'm reading from Twitter. I found out a few days ago that my super liberal leftist white woman friend is dating a white libertarian from South Carolina who, quote, doesn't want to talk about politics with her. So I showed her this picture and she got mad. Every third hetero couple. Did you check out that Salon article I sent everyone? And the man is the most racist man alive. And she got mad. She got mad. You should put fish or bugs on a shelf behind you. These can't bear very much weight, you guys. These have to be, like, really very lightweight because, like, it's not everything is in a stud. You know what I mean? So, like, I can't put a terrarium on one of these because that's going to be too heavy. Just post outfits. Well, I mean, yeah, but that's the thing is, like, I don't feel cute in any of my outfits right now. What about candles? Candles are also heavy. And I wouldn't want to burn candles that close to the wall. It's like I could put decorative candles up there, I guess. I need to put something on this top shelf that's, like, going to be tall enough to really be seen above. I'm not sure what that is yet. Right now, there's just what used to have vodka in it. It's a little glass bottle with is the shape of a skull. Too tight a space for a standing terrarium. Yeah, too tight a space for a standing terrarium. Plus, I don't want to do that much work. I don't want to do that much work. It's like, this is the perfect place for there to be, like, posters and stuff. I'll just have to acquire the posters over time. You know? And, like, this space over here could also have a little bit of something going on. It's fine. We're figuring things out. And this is still not pointed the way that I want it to be pointed. because I did Takis. Okay. Oh, jeez. I was gonna say plates, but that wouldn't work. I'm in the I would like to acquire at least a couple skulls to like put up on the wall. I was thinking right over here I could maybe have like a rabbit fur pinned to the wall potentially. Some people put plates on like a little thing that like tilts slightly and it like basically lets you hang plates on the walls. I'm going to be getting a custom watercolor painting of a dragon at some point. I don't know when those are going to be fulfilled because it was a Kickstarter, but that's going to go up there at some point. I'm just reading a thread. I was trying to decide whether I was going to you should hang a suspended Han Solo there. True. I could probably 3D print such a thing. Anyway, I'm going to read the initial tweet here. The people who truly believe COVID is disabling for everyone, that COVID is set to bring about total societal collapse, and it's just a matter of time before it kills and disables the entire world, are either mild, delusional, or coping tremendously to soothe their own despair. I don't know what this word is supposed to be. Proselytizing about COVID like an online end-time sidewalk crank is not going to make anyone take you seriously. COVID is a nasty virus, but people have eyes and ears and can see that for the most part, people are largely fine. This dogma is totally discrediting. Plague rat, are you normally like a COVID smart person? What the fuck? But anyway, this person says 3D printing that would take forever. Yeah, but it only has to cover this part of my wall. You know, it doesn't have to... I don't have to print the whole thing. It just has to be what's visible. Anyway, people are largely fine. My family went into this pandemic healthy, and let me tell you how we're doing now. My husband and I, who are former gym rats, both have long COVID and neuropathy. I have disabling autonomic neuropathy. Can't even list all the ways that impacts me. Husband and younger kid both have aortic damage, and they're not biologically related. Younger kid has immune issues, heart and lung damage. Older kid has disabling POTS, similar to my issues, but actually worse. My stepkid has autoimmune thrombocytopenia from first infection, made drastically worse by a recent infection. Following their COVID infections, my mother developed dementia, my father developed heart failure, and my uncle, who initially infected them, died of a heart attack. My aunt is dying of pancreatic cancer. A 40-year-old relative and a 59-year-old relative died of acute infection. Beyond the health impacts, have you experienced what it's like to drive now? People can't figure out a four-way stop. They drive through red lights, and a shocking number of cars are damaged or just missing bumpers entirely. Have you tried getting anything done? No one can deliver mail or packages reliably anymore. Any tasks requiring multi-step human intervention are fucked up more than they're not. Malpractice is soaring. IQ is spiraling down. Developmental milestones are being rolled back. Healthcare is in freefall. Chronic illness is rising at a staggering rate. So many people have died that it's saving Social Security billions of dollars. Planes are falling out of the sky, and similar in other industries, because the people operating and maintaining them are cooked. If this isn't society in collapse, pardon me, but I don't know what the fuck you're looking for as your sign. That's crazy. I mean, like, that spiraled out. They initially were like, how does this impact my family? And like, yeah, it sounds like damn near every single person in their immediate family has been like harmed by COVID in some way. Just for the love of God, don't put a bookshelf behind you. Ah, let me reassure you, the bookshelf is just out of frame over there. I guess I can't move this enough to get you to see it, which is I guess a good thing because I'm always so tired of how easily this moves. But anyway, yes, the bookshelf is just out of frame over here. I've seen a few videos claiming plane travel is less safe. I mean, it seems like, we can see that. There's evidence that plane travel is less safe now. But also, yeah, just driving. People are not doing a very good job at it. Gen B shall be known as the stupid generation. Is that the one that's going to come after Generation Alpha? We're starting all the way over. No. Look around doesn't actually mean around. Doesn't mean look around. It's supposed to be a thought-terminating cliche. Exactly. Don't actually look around at the things happening in life. Generation Beta. True. I saw at least one person say that you should do everything you can to avoid despair and terror. Like, don't allow yourself to be terrorized, basically, because then you'll be less effective. And I think that that's a good point. That, like, even if we are acknowledging that bad things are happening, like, don't let yourself be terrorized by it to the extent that that's possible. My dad's old driving advice is that everyone is actively trying to kill you, and that has felt super useful lately. That's the driving advice that you get as a motorcyclist, and I guess if you follow it as a car person, you'll probably be safer. Just assume that no one can see you, you know? That's really the advice for motorcyclists, is just assume that people cannot see you at all. Like, you might as well not exist on the road. Mm. Hopefully they'll have some inborn immunity after we finish cooking ourselves. Yeah, the problem is that we don't retain long-term information about coronaviruses in our bone marrow in the way that we do with flu. So, like, you can get a flu vaccine once a year, and you wouldn't even really need to get one more than that if it weren't for the fact that it still mutates, and you'll have a new one by this time next year, right? So we keep getting flu vaccines, not because we don't have the information anymore, but because the flu has changed enough that we need to update the information that we store in our bodies. The problem with coronaviruses is that we don't store that information in the long term. So really, you should get a vaccine twice a year because they start dramatically losing efficacy about like 4 to 6 months after you get your shot. As a road cyclist, I concur. My dad took me for my very first drive in a junker that had no brakes. He was still laughing when I hit a tree. Oh my god, that's so insane. People in these trucks and SUVs, not only do they have jack for visibility, but they also don't care about people around them because they are in a, quote, safe vehicle. Yeah, that, like, if they get in a car accident, like, yeah, maybe they might kill a motorcyclist, but at least they won't be hurt. Man, I should work out more. Then I'll feel like I should, like, share my muscles more. Like, this is how big my arms are after, like, not exercising for, like, 6 months. I just have some natural biceps that never go away. Someone else here says everyone in my life, including COVID deniers, is now commenting on how sicknesses are way more frequent and take longer to get over. My dad was told by his cardiologist that his stroke at age 60 was likely COVID related. People are not okay. Literally last night, I had 3 people over and I pointed out how long one of them was sick earlier this year. And she goes, nowadays, you don't get sick for a day or two. It takes weeks. Why did you have people over to your house? Why did you do that? Kitty says part of learning how to drive from this family friend first involved learning stick. Then the last lesson, he got the truck stuck deep in the sand and made me get it out. Learning to drive stick was a blessing. I seriously recommend doing it. You can get cars for way under normal market value due to the small driving pool. Yes, but also at this point you're only getting an older car. So it's like, either it's a really good older car or you're just getting a shitty older car and it's harder to do maintenance on them. I'm pretty sure polio took a long time to get over and the plague. Well, yeah, but those things aren't really like present in our lifetimes. I think that these people are describing a difference between what things were like 10 years ago versus what things are like now, It's like I've been thinking about asking people like, how many times did you get sick your senior year of high school versus how many times did you get sick last year? Obviously, if you're talking to somebody in their 70s, first of all, they might not remember how many times they got sick their senior year of high school, but also they might be like, well, of course, I'm old now. But if you're talking to anybody in their 30s and 40s, it's like, okay, you shouldn't be that different now in your 30s and 40s, immunologically speaking. But yeah, I mean, also it's like part of growing up in a world. Like I said, that a story that I told earlier in stream about like the woman whose kid had whooping cough, and she was like, "Gosh, I just wish there had been some way to prevent this." And it's like, you're the anti-vax one who didn't get the vaccine. Um, but like we don't respect these illnesses. We don't. I don't think people really take for granted that their child is going to survive its infancy, and that is not something that we were able to guarantee for people until the past 100 years. Just like go to any old graveyard and look at how many babies died in their first year. People just like think that they're fine. Like, yeah, growing up in a world with all these vaccines and all these eradicated diseases has caused people to completely lose perspective and respect for how fucked up those diseases are. You end up saving on maintenance, insurance, and gas mileage because you can maximize your engine's potential instead of just letting the system think it knows what's going on. IDK, I'm a fan of the manual and I'm trying to spread the word, teaching all the kids. Do you have a manual? I mean, I'm not like opposed to learning it. Honestly, I think I tried to like ride a motorcycle a couple times. My husband wanted me to try his motorcycle. And I think part of the thing that made it so difficult was that I didn't understand the manual transmission. I mean, like I understand it, but that's different than being able to actually operate it. So yeah, it's like if I learned how to drive stick first, then maybe. Infant mortality used to be what, like 60%? Yeah, it was crazy high. Yes, child mortality is the reason that the average lifespan in previous human ages has been like 30. It's not because people aren't living past 30. People typically live to 60, 70. But it's because that if you include the children, it drags the average down. My car and my truck are manual. Nice. Also, it means it's harder to steal your car because most people don't know how to drive manual. Some historic cultures had traditions where they don't name a baby until a period of time after it's been born. Yeah. Andy asserts that the difference between manual transmission and the new automatics are very small in terms of gas mileage. Yeah, but I'm also like not necessarily going to buy a new car, right? Like if I buy like a 2005 vehicle and it's an automatic, it's not going to be like the most updated form of transmission. I'm definitely not going to be buying a new car anytime soon. Like my husband needs a work truck and I would like to start saving money. I'm like, we're kind of living off of our savings a little bit right now. Seeing if there's anything else interesting. Because we're reaching a point where I'm like, well, I'm starting to wonder if I shouldn't do longer streams. Because I seem to have a lot of energy for it. Also, new cars have a lot of built-to-fail features that I am not thrilled by. Fair. Child mortality is the other reason we socially pushed for a high birth rate. Well, yeah, of course. If only 50% of them survived, so you'd need to have 6 kids in order to have 3 of them actually. It's like either I should wind down and get off of here soon, or I should start a new task and continue streaming for another hour or two. You know what I mean? Like, I'm living off of sun right now. True. Just photosynthesizing. I got a Chevy Impala in 2000 and I still drive it. Hell yeah. Excuse me. We've had a good, steady, roughly 30 viewers this whole time, which I appreciate. I know that I'm like explicitly moving away from. I mean, I don't know. It's like I'm obviously still talking about the politics, but I want to have the option to talk about other stuff. So I feel like if you come in and I'm talking about whatever and then the politics comes up, you might be more like, okay, well, whatever. Instead of if you're like, this is a politics streamer, and then you come in and I'm talking about fucking shoes. I don't know. I have family that came across the Oregon Trail that had 8 kids, and only the mother and 1 kid survived the trip. Dude, life was brutal back then. Yeah, we really did have a lot of fun when we were traveling across the country going like, can you imagine like coming across this as a colonizer and being like, how the fuck do we get over these mountains? And then you think you get like get over the first mountain and then you can see actually further than because the first mountain blocked your view. Just because it's suddenly very much mountains. It's basically like flat mountains when you hit the Rockies. But just imagine you crest the first mountain and you're like, hell yeah, dude. Or even if you find a valley, but you're like, okay, we just need to find a valley between these 2 mountains and then we'll be good. But then there's more towering mountains and it's like every direction you look and you're like, fuck. Yeah. Put shoes on the wall? I'm not going to do that. Yeah, so many pioneers and settlers just straight up died. That's what happens to you when you try to master the earth instead of living in harmony with the earth. I played the Oregon Trail game where you have to ford lots of rivers. That's another thing too. How the fuck do you get across that river? Like the Mississippi River is extremely wide in some places. It's so wide. And like they came up here, like the Oregon Trail originally went along the Columbia River. Like, can you imagine like looking across the Columbia River and being like, there's a whole bunch of fucking land over there that we now call Washington. But back then you'd be like, well, I guess we're never going to get over there because this river is like 6 miles wide at its widest or some shit like that. I don't know. I can't actually remember. It's still so astounding to me that going down the Columbia River Valley, if they didn't have a dam, that like there are entire towns and entire parts of the highway that would just be totally submerged. Oh my gosh, my aunt had a 1992 Ford Probe that still ran until the flooding in California last year. The engine got waterlogged and it died. Car is older than me. Damn. Damn. That's crazy. Oh gosh. Well, you guys, I think let's go ahead and wrap it up there. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Still kind of trying to find the exact flavor of tone that I want these streams to have, and like what titles do I want, you know, how bumpin'. Yo mama's so wide she can bridge the Mississippi all by herself. True, Ember, true. I know one of the eldest brothers went back and forth across a frozen river 12 times till all the littles that had made it that far were across, and then he died. Damn. Children were also very drunk back then because there was no safe drinking water. I don't actually think that it's true that there was no safe drinking water. I think that that's one of those, like, historical myths. But certainly you might go lengths of time without accessing any water. If you're just, like, if you're climbing through some mountains, there might not be any water. Depending on what time of the year it is and everything. So, like, yeah, you might just have to drink whatever rum you have packaged just because there's nothing else to drink. But then also you're going to dehydrate yourself more. So would it be better to just not drink anything? It's the game that you have to play. Anyway, thank you very much for hanging out with me, everybody. I'm still going to workshop some more of, like, what do we want to do on stream? How do we want to, what kind of tone, what kind of stuff do we want to talk about? Are there any segments we want to do on stream? Should we bring back a tarot segment? I could put my tarot cards up there. Anyway, much love, everybody. I will plan to see you all on Wednesday, and this week I'm going to get back to work on my essays and start trying to churn out content and see if I can become like a 2 video essays a month kind of person. So thank you very much. We'll see you next time.